2 millennia ago, a great war raged between the human world and the underworld, a conflict that seemed destined to consume everything in its path. Amid the chaos, one being from the underworld awakened to justice and turned against his own kind, fighting alone to end the carnage. His name was Sparda, the legendary Dark Knight. With unrivaled power and determination, he sealed the gates of the underworld and preserved peace in the human world. Sparda lived quietly among humans, protecting the fragile harmony until his death. In time, his deeds faded into legend. Present day. Dark clouds blanketed the night sky, their grim presence mirrored by the relentless rain that pounded the streets below. People hurried through the downpour, umbrellas shielding them from nature's fury, while others sought shelter in shop fronts or alleyways. In one such alley, a small boy sat on the cold, wet ground, his thin frame shivering beneath tattered rags. Rain drenched his blonde hair, plastering it against his forehead. His vibrant blue eyes, now dulled and lifeless, stared blankly into a puddle at his feet. His reflection, warped by the ripples, bore faint whisker-like marks on his cheeks. The child's hollow gaze betrayed no emotion, only exhaustion and despair. He had escaped death only to find himself in an unfamiliar world, with no family, no shelter, and no hope. At the same time, Dante was finishing a routine demon-hunting job. It had been a few months since the chaos involving his brother Virgil and the madman Arkham. Business had returned to normal, or as normal as things ever got in his line of work. Tonight's assignment, given by his associate lady, involved clearing out a mansion infested with low-level demons. It had been easy work, leaving Dante with an itch for something more exciting. He decided to reward himself with a strawberry sundae and headed back to his office through the rain. As he passed an alley, a sudden, strange sensation brought him to a halt. Dante turned, his icy blue eyes narrowing as they fell on the small boy huddled in the shadows. The sensation intensified, sharp and undeniable. This presence. It's demonic. He approached the boy cautiously, the familiar weight of rebellion on his back tempting him to end the potential threat before it grew. But something stopped him, a flicker of curiosity, perhaps even sympathy. The child's frailty and lifeless eyes stirred something within him. Squatting in front of the boy, Dante tried to speak softly. "What are you doing out here alone in the rain?" The boy didn't respond, his gaze remaining fixed on the ground. Dante frowned. "Not much of a talker, huh?" He gestured toward a passing couple, then pointed at the boy. "Where's your family? Do you have one?" The boy shook his head slowly. Dante sighed, pulling off his red coat and draping it over the child's trembling shoulders. "You're safe now," he said, lifting the boy into his arms. Hours later, Dante paced his office, the boy now asleep on his newly acquired pool table. The space was still under repair from the last battle with Virgil, leaving Dante to make do with what he had. "Where the hell is she?" he muttered. As if on cue, the double doors swung open, and Lady strode in, her expression a mix of irritation and curiosity. "Dante. What's this about a demon child?" "Exactly what I said on the phone. See for yourself." Lady's eyes widened as she saw the blonde-haired boy. Her frown deepened as she turned back to Dante. "He's like you, isn't he? A hybrid?" Dante nodded. "I think so. Me and Virgil were supposed to be the only known Nephilim. But this kid, he's different. And you don't think he's just been abandoned?" Dante shook his head. "No way. I can sense it, there's something powerful inside him." Lady sighed. "Do you at least know his name or where he came from?" "Nope. Found him in an alley on my way back. He doesn't speak or understand our language." Lady crossed her arms. "So what's your plan, Dante?" "I'm adopting him," Dante said simply. Lady blinked, then glared. "And what am I here for?" "Because I don't know anything about raising a kid," Dante admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. Lady groaned, muttering under her breath about Dante's incompetence. But her expression softened as she glanced at the sleeping boy. Fine, she relented. But I'm only doing this for him, not you. Dante grinned. Good enough for me. 10 years later. The moonlight streamed through shattered windows, illuminating the bloodied battlefield. Naruto stood amidst a pile of demon corpses, his blade dripping crimson. The once lifeless blue eyes now burned with determination, reflecting the light of the moon. His attire mirrored Dante's style, a tailored black coat with purple accents, paired with a white shirt and black pants. A necklace bearing the Uzumaki symbol hung around his neck, a silent nod to his mysterious origins. Naruto glanced at the Smith & Wesson Model 460 in his left hand, a birthday gift from Lady. His right hand gripped his blade, Purgatory, a weapon forged by Dante himself. Guess I should head back before Dante spends my share of the payment on Sundays. Naruto arrived back at the office to find the front door broken. Alarm bells rang in his mind as he stepped inside, his grip tightening on Purgatory. The scene was chaotic, furniture overturned, walls scarred with battle marks. Dante stood in the center of the room, guns trained on an unfamiliar woman. The woman was striking, with long blonde hair and sharp features. Her black corset and leather pants emphasized her confidence, but it was her face that caught Naruto's attention. She looks just like Eva, Dante whispered, lowering his gun slightly. The woman, noticing their reactions, removed her sunglasses. I'm not your enemy, she said calmly. My name is Trish. I've come to ask for your help. Help with what? Dante asked, his voice cautious. To stop Mundus. He's returned. Dante's eyes narrowed. Naruto, unfamiliar with the name, looked between the two, sensing the weight of the revelation. Mundus is trying to open the gates to the underworld on Mallet Island, Trish continued. If he succeeds, it'll be the end of the human world. Dante smirked, holstering his guns. Then we'll stop him. Naruto stepped forward. I'm coming too. Dante hesitated. Kid, this isn't like the small fries you've been fighting. I know. But this is what you've trained me for, isn't it? Trish interjected with a smirk. The more, the merrier. Dante sighed. Fine. But I'm not babysitting you. Naruto grinned. Deal. With their fates intertwined, the trio prepared to face the greatest threat yet, one that would test their strength, loyalty, and resolve. Stronger. Wait. We can talk about this. Phantom's voice rang out, its bravado slipping into a desperate plea. Dante smirked, his crimson coat bellowing as he lunged forward with lightning speed. A laster crackled in his hands, its power surging as he struck down with the force of a thunderstorm. Sorry, buddy. No takebacks. Dante's voice was laced with dark humor as he brought the blade down. Phantom roared, the sheer force of the attack cracking its molten carapace. Sparks erupted, and a loud boom echoed through the narrow hallway, shaking the structure. Naruto, watching from the side, crossed his arms, a smug grin playing on his lips. Show off, he muttered, though admiration gleamed in his eyes. As Phantom writhed in pain, Dante continued his relentless assault. He dodged its tail swipe with a graceful spin and countered with a mid-air slash that left another glowing scar on its body. Naruto could feel the raw energy emanating from Dante's strikes. All right, my turn. Naruto declared, dashing forward. You sure you can keep up, kid? Dante quipped without looking back. Naruto gritted his teeth, smirking. Watch me. The Phantom roared again, attempting to fire a massive fireball at Naruto. Without hesitation, Naruto swung Purgatory, splitting the fiery attack in half. The flames dispersed harmlessly, and Naruto closed the distance in an instant. He leapt onto the Phantom's back, his demonic aura flaring as he plunged purgatory into its molten flesh. Phantom shrieked, thrashing violently in an attempt to dislodge him. "You're all bark, no bite," Naruto shouted, pulling the blade free and landing a series of slashes along its back. His movements were fluid and precise, a deadly dance of blades and fury. Phantom, realizing it was outmatched, burrowed into the ground, lava bubbling in its wake. The hallway fell silent for a moment, save for the faint crackling of residual lightning. Naruto sighed, his cloak of red chakra dissipating. Coward ran away again. Dante, leaning against the wall and spinning a laster in his hand, chuckled. "It's smart enough to know when it's out of its league. But don't worry, it'll be back." Naruto groaned, kicking a piece of rubble. "Next time, I'm finishing it?" "Sure you are," Dante said, walking past him. "Now come on, there's still a whole castle to explore." The Tower of Trials. After dispatching the Phantom, Dante and Naruto found themselves in a massive, spiraling tower. The air was thick with the scent of decay and power. Trish's trail had gone cold, leaving them to rely on their instincts. Naruto gazed up at the seemingly endless staircase. "Let me guess, we're going all the way to the top." "Yep," Dante replied casually, already starting up the stairs. As they ascended, traps activated with each level. Blades shot from the walls, magic circles summoned waves of cursed puppets, and the stairs themselves crumbled beneath their feet. Despite the challenges, the two pressed on, their banter keeping the atmosphere light. "You know," Naruto said, dodging a spinning blade trap, "you could handle these traps yourself, but no, you just had to let me do it." "Think of it as training," Dante called back, smashing a cursed puppet with the butt of a laster. "You wanna hang with the big dogs, you gotta prove you can bite." Naruto rolled his eyes, using purgatory to deflect another trap. "Bite this, old man." They reached a large chamber near the top of the tower. A massive, ornate door loomed before them, its surface carved with demonic symbols. At its center was an empty slot. "Another puzzle," Dante muttered, examining the door. Naruto groaned. "Great. Let me guess, we need to find some magical key or fight another boss to get through." "Now you're catching on," Dante said with a grin. Before they could proceed, the ground shook violently. From the shadows, a new demon emerged, a towering figure clad in black armor, wielding a massive scythe. Its glowing red eyes fixed on the duo. "Looks like the boss came to us," Dante remarked, drawing ebony and ivory. Naruto cracked his knuckles, a feral grin spreading across his face. "Finally, some real fun." The armored demon let out a guttural roar, raising its scythe and slamming it into the ground. A shock wave erupted, forcing Dante and Naruto to leap back. "Stick to the plan, Naruto," Dante said, firing a volley of bullets. "I'll distract it, you find an opening." Naruto nodded, rushing in as Dante engaged the demon head-on. Dante's guns echoed through the chamber, the demon's scythe deflecting most of the shots. Meanwhile, Naruto darted around its massive form, his movements a blur. "Now!" Dante shouted, firing a charged shot that staggered the demon. Naruto took the opening, channeling his chakra into purgatory. The blade glowed red-hot as he unleashed a devastating slash across the demon's back. It roared in pain, swinging its scythe wildly. "That all you got?" Naruto taunted, landing another blow. The fight was intense, but the duo's coordination proved unstoppable. Dante's precise attacks kept the demon off balance, while Naruto's relentless assault whittled it down. Finally, with a synchronized strike, Dante's lightning-charged slash and Naruto's chakra-infused attack, they shattered the demon's armor, reducing it to ash. The chamber fell silent as the key to the door materialized in the center of the room. Naruto picked it up, grinning. "Told you we'd win." Dante ruffled his hair, earning a glare. "Not bad, kid. You're getting there. The inner sanctum. With the key in hand, they unlocked the ornate door, stepping into the heart of the castle. The air was thick with demonic energy, and the walls pulsed as if alive. This place just gets creepier, Naruto muttered. Dante smirked, his eyes scanning the room. Welcome to the inner sanctum. Let's see what kind of trouble we can stir up. As they ventured deeper, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and whispers echoed through the halls. Stay sharp, Dante warned, his hand on a laster. Naruto nodded, his grip tightening on purgatory. He could feel it too, a presence far stronger than anything they'd faced so far. Let's finish this, he said, determination burning in his eyes. Dante grinned. That's the spirit. Together, they pressed on, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them in the depths of Malad Island. While longer, the grim atmosphere momentarily lightened by their banter. The respite, though brief, allowed them to collect themselves for the challenges ahead. Both knew their mission wasn't over not until Mundus was stopped and the portal to the underworld sealed. After a few minutes, Dante stood, cracking his neck. All right, break's over. Let's see what this door is hiding. Naruto got to his feet, stretching. Yeah. The sooner we finish this, the sooner I can stop smelling like sewer water. Dante smirked as he activated the mechanism. The door slid open with a low rumble, revealing a dimly lit hallway adorned with ominous carvings. The air felt heavier, charged with demonic energy. They exchanged a glance, their weapons ready, and stepped through. The forbidden chamber. The hallway led to a vast chamber, its walls lined with grotesque statues depicting twisted, snarling demons. At the center of the room stood a massive, glowing portal, its swirling energy a sickly mix of green and black. Surrounding it were stone pedestals, each bearing strange, glowing glyphs. Naruto frowned. That portal, it feels alive. Dante nodded. That's because it is. Mundus is trying to force his way through. We have to shut it down before he breaks through completely. Before they could approach, a deep, guttural laugh echoed through the chamber. Shadows coalesced near the portal, forming into a towering figure. It was another of Mundus's generals, this one an enormous, hulking demon with jagged horns and burning red eyes. Its body was covered in molten cracks, oozing lava with each step. I am Asteroth, guardian of the threshold, the demon growled. You shall not pass. Naruto rolled his eyes. Great, another walking cliché. Dante chuckled, spinning a laster in his hand. Yeah, but this one's uglier than most. Asteroth roared in rage, swinging a massive, flaming mace that slammed into the ground, sending out a shockwave of molten rock. The two barely dodged in time, rolling to opposite sides of the chamber. The battle with Asteroth. The fight was unlike anything they'd faced before. Asteroth's size and power made him a formidable foe. His attacks were slow but devastating, each swing of his mace shattering stone and leaving trails of fire. The molten lava that dripped from his body created hazards across the battlefield, forcing Naruto and Dante to constantly stay on the move. Naruto activated his three-tailed cloak, his movements becoming a blur as he darted around the demon. He launched a barrage of rays non-strikes, but Asteroth's molten armor absorbed the attacks, glowing brighter with each hit. Naruto. Stop feeding him energy. Dante called out, firing ebony and ivory. The bullets ricocheted off the demon's armor, leaving only minor cracks. Naruto growled. Got any better ideas? Dante grinned, switching to his shotgun. Yeah. Aim for the cracks. As Asteroth raised his mace for another strike, Dante leapt onto a nearby statue, gaining the high ground. He fired a blast at a weak spot on the demon's chest, causing a small explosion. Asteroth staggered, roaring in pain. Now, Naruto. Dante shouted. Naruto summoned a shadow clone, each forming a Raisin shuriken. With a coordinated effort, they hurled the spinning spheres of energy at the exposed crack. The resulting explosion was deafening, and Asteroth howled in agony as chunks of molten rock were blasted from his body. The demon wasn't finished, though. He slammed his mace into the ground, creating a wave of fire that forced them to retreat. In his weakened state, Asteroth began drawing energy from the portal behind him, his body glowing with renewed power. "He's using the portal to heal," Naruto exclaimed. "Then we shut it down," Dante replied, pointing to the pedestals. "Those glyphs are probably controlling it. I'll keep him busy. You figure out how to deactivate them." Naruto nodded and sprinted toward the nearest pedestal. As he approached, glowing runes appeared, forming a barrier. "Of course it can't be that easy," he muttered. The puzzle. Each pedestal required a specific sequence of actions to deactivate its glyph. Naruto relied on his instincts and a bit of trial and error, deciphering the ancient symbols etched into the stone. Meanwhile, Dante faced Asteroth head-on, using every trick in his arsenal to keep the demon distracted. "Any day now, kid," Dante shouted, narrowly dodging a fiery swing of the mace. "I'm working on it," Naruto snapped, his fingers flying across the glyphs. With the final press, the first pedestal deactivated, and the barrier around the portal dimmed slightly. "One down, 3 to go," Naruto muttered, racing to the next pedestal. The final blow. After an intense struggle, Naruto deactivated the last pedestal, and the portal's energy sputtered, its glow fading. Asteroth roared in fury as his connection to the portal was severed. Weakened and enraged, he turned his attention fully to Dante. "Your turn, Sparda's son," the demon bellowed, charging at Dante with reckless abandon. Dante smirked, raising a laster. "With pleasure." As Asteroth swung his mace, Dante sidestepped, using the momentum to deliver a devastating upward slash. Lightning crackled along the blade as it tore through the demon's molten chest, splitting him in two. Asteroth let out a final, guttural roar before collapsing into a pool of lava, his body disintegrating. Naruto approached, panting. "Well, that was a pain." Dante twirled a laster and sheathed it. "You're getting better at this, kid." Naruto smirked. "You mean I'm carrying you through these fights?" Dante laughed, patting him on the shoulder. "Keep dreaming." The path forward. With the portal sealed and Asteroth defeated, the chamber began to crumble. They sprinted back the way they came, dodging falling debris. As they emerged into the open air, the castle trembled, its dark aura fading. Naruto looked back at the collapsing structure. "One step closer to Mundus." Dante nodded, his expression serious. "Yeah. But it's only going to get tougher from here." Naruto grinned. "Good. I was starting to get bored." The two shared a brief laugh before turning their attention to the horizon, where the final confrontation awaited. Together, they pressed on, determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Immense resilience and overwhelming power. Despite the searing pain running through his body, Naruto forced himself to stand, his legs trembling but unwavering. The bolt of lightning had struck him with full force, but the Nine-Tails chakra and his own growing strength had mitigated most of the damage. Still, the attack was no joke, and he could feel the aftershocks rattling his entire being. "You okay, kid?" Dante's voice was laced with concern, though his face still wore that smug grin, one that only added to the tension in the air. Naruto grunted, standing tall. "I'm fine," he said, though his voice lacked the usual cocky tone. He wasn't invincible, but the pain only reminded him of the depths of his power that he was still tapping into. The red glow from purgatory intensified as his grip tightened on the hilt of the blade, channeling more of his dark power. "Good," Dante replied with a nod. He didn't waste any time. The Griffin wasn't waiting either. The massive demonic bird, after seeing Naruto take the lightning like it was nothing, let out a screech that echoed through the heavens, summoning another barrage of lightning bolts aimed directly at the duo. "Watch out!" Naruto shouted, sensing the incoming attack. With a swift motion, Dante shot at the Griffin with the grenade launcher, his aim precise as he released a barrage of explosive rounds that rocketed towards the demon. The bird swerved, dodging most of the shots, but one grazed its wing, sending it spiraling into a nearby column. It recovered quickly, but the minor injury had caused it to hesitate for a moment. "Now's our chance," Naruto yelled. Purgatory was already in motion, the blade crackling with energy as Naruto rushed towards the Griffin with speed that matched the demon's aerial agility. His eyes gleamed with excitement and determination, his mind calculating every move. The Griffin screeched again and dove toward him, its sharp talons aimed at Naruto's chest. Naruto wasn't just going to block. He was going to end it. With a fierce roar, he summoned his power, his cloak flaring up around him as his 4 remaining tails lashed out like whips. His speed increased tenfold, and before the Griffin could react, Naruto launched himself upward, slashing through the air. He cut through the beast's talons and chest with a single, fluid motion, sending the Griffin spiraling back in agony. But it wasn't over. The Griffin, while clearly injured, was not done. It turned in mid-air, its body covered in a crackling aura, and released a massive burst of electric energy in a last-ditch effort to obliterate Naruto and Dante. Naruto's eyes widened as the attack came at him, but before he could react, Dante was already there, his grenades exploding on impact with the Griffin's electric storm. "Take this, Featherbrain!" Dante roared, his devilish energy surging as his new gauntlets glowed bright red, igniting the very air around him. The Griffin shrieked, its energy dissipating as the attacks rained down on it. The explosion rattled the air, leaving a cloud of smoke where the Griffin once hovered. When the smoke cleared, the Griffin's body was disintegrated, leaving only the charred remnants of its wings. Naruto and Dante landed with a resounding thud on the ground, breathing heavily but grinning. "That was intense," Naruto panted, wiping some sweat from his brow. His energy was waning slightly, but the adrenaline kept him going. He glanced at Dante, who was already back to his usual cocky demeanor, despite the battle that had just unfolded. "I told you, kid," Dante smirked, adjusting his gauntlets. "This is just the beginning. If you can keep up with me, you might actually survive this." Naruto rolled his eyes but couldn't help but feel the thrill of the battle. Yeah. But next time, I'm taking the lead." Dante chuckled, clapping him on the back. "Don't get cocky. I'm not going to let you outshine me anytime soon." Before they could exchange more words, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A new threat loomed over them, this time from the castle's gates. The stone doors were slowly opening, revealing a dark figure silhouetted in the shadows. Well, Dante muttered, eyes narrowing. "Looks like we're about to meet someone who thinks they're all that." Naruto grinned, his tails flicking behind him in excitement. "Let's see if they can handle both of us." A moment later, a tall, imposing figure stepped into the light. It was a demon, but unlike any they had faced before. The creature was clad in ancient, ornate armor, its face hidden behind a helmet adorned with dark, ominous engravings. The demon exuded an aura of authority, its every step vibrating with power. "Dante Sparda," the demon's voice echoed with deep, resounding authority. "I have waited centuries for this moment. The son of Sparda, the one who will challenge the darkness. And you've brought a child with you." Naruto snarled, stepping forward with an arrogant smirk. "I'm no child. And you're about to find that out the hard way." The demon chuckled darkly. "I see. Then let us see if you truly are worthy of your lineage." Dante cracked his neck and prepared himself for the fight. "This'll be fun," he said, his voice dripping with confidence. Naruto was already shifting, his energy growing once more as he felt the pull of the Nine Tails chakra. He raised Purgatory, its blade glowing faintly with dark power. The demon drew a massive sword from its back, the blade glowing with a sinister aura that seemed to warp the very air around it. It raised the sword, pointing it directly at the duo. "You will fall before me, child of Sparda," the demon hissed. Dante's grin only widened. "We'll see about that." The battle was about to begin, and this time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about testing the limits of their power, pushing beyond what they thought possible, and embracing the darkness within. This time, they were ready. Together, they would face whatever came next, and neither of them would back down. Not now. Not ever. Several expansive decks and a dark, looming presence. The wood creaked beneath their feet, and the wind howled through the broken windows of the upper decks. The whole place seemed abandoned, yet a sense of foreboding filled the air. The ship felt like it had been trapped in time, its grandeur slowly decaying. "Looks like this ship has seen better days," Naruto muttered, scanning the horizon. "But why is it here? And where are the demons coming from?" "Demons always find a way to invade the most unexpected places," Dante replied, his voice laced with experience. "Maybe this ghost ship was just unlucky." Naruto frowned. "Lucky for us, though." "Indeed," Dante agreed, but his eyes narrowed, scanning the area. "But don't get too comfortable. This place still feels off." Just as he spoke, the eerie silence was shattered by the sounds of multiple footsteps. From the shadows, several vampire demons emerged, elegant and deadly, their fangs glinting in the dim light. They hissed, revealing sharp claws and eyes burning with malice. "Vampires? Great, now we have the undead to deal with," Naruto sighed, cracking his knuckles and reaching for Purgatory. "This day just keeps getting better." The vampire demons moved gracefully, like shadowy figures dancing on the edge of a nightmare. Their speed and agility were unmatched, and they closed the distance between them and the two quickly. Naruto's eyes gleamed with intensity as he held Purgatory steady, his body shifting into a fighting stance. "Kid, keep your head in the game," Dante warned as he unsheathed Rebellion. "These guys aren't like the others." Naruto grinned. "No problem, Dante. I've got this." In an instant, Naruto dashed forward, Purgatory gleaming in the moonlight as it cut through the air. The first vampire lunged at him with deadly speed, its claws aimed straight at his throat. But Naruto anticipated the strike. He ducked low, his chakras surging through his body, and with a swift motion, Purgatory cleaved through the vampire's torso, sending its body into a cloud of dark mist. "One down," Naruto said with a grin, his confidence growing. Dante, not to be outdone, twirled Rebellion with finesse, blocking an incoming strike from another vampire. He countered immediately, using his devil trigger to enhance his strength and speed, sending the vampire flying backward with a powerful slash. "Try not to have too much fun," Dante smirked as he flipped his sword back into a defensive stance. Naruto didn't need any more encouragement. With a quick burst of chakra, he launched himself into the air, unleashing a flurry of attacks. The vampires were fast, but Naruto's speed was faster, his strikes too relentless for them to counter. In the heat of the battle, Naruto could feel his power growing. Each swing of Purgatory was more precise, more powerful. His chakra cloak flared around him, amplifying his speed and strength. The vampires tried to regroup, but it was clear that they were outmatched. One by one, they fell, their bodies dissolving into dark mist before hitting the ground. It didn't take long for the remaining vampires to realize they were facing opponents far stronger than they could handle. With a final, sweeping motion, Naruto sliced through the last of them, his chakra flaring in a final burst of power. As the last vampire crumbled, the ship fell silent once again. The echoes of battle faded into the night. "Not bad, kid," Dante said, sheathing rebellion and giving Naruto a nod of approval. Naruto wiped sweat from his brow and grinned. Yeah, not bad yourself. As the two of them made their way further across the deck, the sky above seemed to darken, and the air grew colder. There was something about this place that felt wrong, like the ship was alive and watching them. The sense of dread was palpable. Dante's expression hardened as he scanned the area. Stay sharp, Naruto. We're not alone here. Naruto's instincts flared, and he narrowed his eyes. You think there's something bigger waiting for us? Dante didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Let's find out. They moved cautiously, taking note of every creak and groan of the ship as they explored deeper into its cursed halls. The eerie atmosphere was thick, almost suffocating, but neither of them hesitated. They were used to dealing with danger head-on. As they reached the center of the ship, the temperature dropped further, and an unnatural fog began to roll in from the edges of the deck. It was then that they heard the haunting sound, a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from all around them. That's not a normal demon, Naruto muttered, his hand tightening on purgatory. And it's close. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook violently, and a massive form erupted from the mist. It was a giant, hulking creature, its body twisted and deformed, dripping with dark energy. Its eyes glowed with an eerie light, and its massive claws scraped against the deck as it bellowed in anger. Dante! Naruto yelled, jumping back to avoid the creature's swing. What is that thing? Dante's eyes widened. A hell beast. This one's different from the usual ones we've faced. It's been corrupted by something much worse. Naruto's grin returned, his chakras surging in response. Sounds like my kind of fight. Brace yourself, Dante warned, his tone serious for the first time in a while. This is going to be one hell of a battle. With a roar, the hell beast charged at them, swinging its massive claws in a wide arc. The force of the attack sent shockwaves through the ship, but both Naruto and Dante were ready. They dodged the beast's assault, quickly regrouping and preparing to strike back. Naruto moved first, his body a blur of motion as he closed the distance between them. With a powerful Chidori-enhanced strike, he slammed into the beast's side, leaving a deep gash. But the creature barely flinched, its skin hard as iron. It retaliated, slamming its claws down toward Naruto, who barely managed to dodge. Not good, Naruto muttered, rolling out of the way. Dante, meanwhile, was circling the creature, looking for an opening. He leapt onto its back, driving rebellion deep into the creature's spine. But even that wasn't enough to slow it down. The hell beast roared in fury, swatting Dante off with a backhanded swipe. Damn it, Dante cursed, flipping back to his feet. This is going to take more than just brute force. Naruto stood tall, cracking his knuckles. Guess it's time to go all out. With a deep breath, Naruto called upon his full power, summoning the strength of the Ninetales and amplifying it with his chakra. His cloak flared around him, and his eyes glowed with intensity. He wasn't holding back anymore. Let's finish this, he said, his voice calm and determined. Dante, sensing the change in Naruto's power, grinned. That's the spirit. The two of them launched into the fray together, attacking the hell beast from all angles. Naruto used his speed to outmaneuver the creature, his lightning-fast strikes landing one after another. Meanwhile, Dante used his demonic strength to deliver crushing blows, creating openings for Naruto to strike. The hell beast roared in pain as the attack slowly began to wear it down. With one final, synchronized attack, Dante and Naruto struck together, Dante's sword cutting through the creature's skull, while Naruto drove purgatory deep into its heart. With a final, deafening roar, the hell beast crumbled to the ground, dissolving into dark mist as the ship seemed to sigh in relief. Breathing heavily, Naruto and Dante stood victorious. That was one hell of a fight, Naruto said, wiping blood from his face. Yeah, Dante agreed, but it's not over yet. The ship groaned again, as if to remind them that more challenges awaited. We've still got work to do, Dante said, turning toward the dark horizon. Let's keep moving. As they navigated through the traps and fought their way past the senseives, Naruto's mind raced. The entire dungeon-like structure they were in seemed to be designed to drive them insane with its labyrinth of corridors and deadly obstacles. But through it all, Dante remained unfazed, his usual cocky grin never leaving his face. Naruto, on the other hand, was growing more frustrated by the minute. His body ached from the constant combat, and the labyrinth's winding paths were starting to get to him. How the hell does this guy never get tired? Naruto muttered under his breath as they reached yet another dead end. What's that, kid? Dante called back from ahead, hearing him. Nothing, Naruto snapped, straightening up. I need a damn break. Dante chuckled. Sure, once we clear out whatever hell this place has left for us. You're not thinking of quitting on me, are you? Naruto clenched his fists. Hell no. I'm just getting started. They pushed forward, moving through another set of rotating platforms, narrowly avoiding the spikes that seemed to spring from the walls at random intervals. Each step brought them closer to what they assumed would be the final confrontation. But with every turn, the place only seemed to get darker, the air thicker with the scent of decay. Eventually, they reached a large, open room, where a figure awaited them, tall, armored, and draped in black with eyes glowing ominously. Well, the figure spoke in a deep, gravelly voice. Took you long enough. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Who the hell are you? The figure smiled darkly, stepping forward. I am the guardian of this castle, the one who ensures only the worthy can claim the power that lies within. And you two are most certainly not worthy. Dante grinned, cracking his knuckles. Oh? I don't know about that. We've been through hell and back already. Not far enough, the guardian hissed, raising a massive, gleaming sword. You'll find this castle a lot less accommodating now. Before they could react, the ground beneath them shook violently. The guardian raised his blade high, and with a swift motion, the castle seemed to respond. Walls shifted, pathways realigned, and new traps sprung to life. The environment itself seemed to turn against them, the floor now erupting in spikes, the ceiling lowering dangerously. Naruto's eyes widened. Damn it, we're trapped. Dante wasn't concerned. We've been through worse. He immediately drew ebony and ivory, opening fire on the approaching guardian. But the guardian deflected the bullets with ease, his movements fluid and controlled. It wasn't just a matter of brute strength, the guardian moved with a practiced elegance, as if every step had been reversed for centuries. Naruto leaped into action, his tail whipping through the air, launching himself toward the guardian. Get out of my way. He roared as he brought Limbo into position, the gun crackling with dark energy. The guardian smirked, raising his sword to meet Naruto's attack head-on. But just before their weapons collided, a burst of energy from Dante's guns knocked the guardian off balance, giving Naruto the opening he needed. With a powerful swing, Naruto's tail connected with the guardian's side, sending him skidding across the room. That's how we do it, Naruto smirked, his confidence building. But the guardian wasn't finished. Rising slowly, the guardian's eyes glowed brighter, his body surrounded by a dark aura. He extended his hand, and suddenly, the room seemed to darken even further, the walls warping and twisting. You think you can defeat me? I am the embodiment of this place, and I will not fall to the likes of you. You're starting to sound like a broken record, buddy, Dante scoffed, stepping forward with a smug expression. But we've got a score to settle, and I don't plan on losing. Naruto stood beside him, raising his fist. Bring it on. The guardian lunged forward, slashing his massive sword with such speed and power that the air itself seemed to crack under the force. Naruto barely managed to dodge the attack, but the sheer power behind it sent shock waves through the room. Dante, however, was quicker. He dodged to the side, using his speed to close the gap between him and the Guardian. With a roar, Dante slammed a laster into the Guardian's sword, locking blades for a brief moment before pushing him back. "I'll handle this," Dante said with a grin, using the opportunity to unleash a barrage of attacks. A laster crackled with energy as Dante danced around the Guardian's strikes, his blade a blur of speed. Naruto, meanwhile, wasn't about to just stand around. He activated his Nine-Tails chakra, feeling the surge of power course through him. His eyes turned a fierce red as his tail swished behind him, the flames flickering around his body. "You're not the only one who can bring the pain." With a flick of his wrist, Naruto unleashed a barrage of energy blasts from Limbo, the dark energy surging toward the Guardian. The Guardian barely had time to react before the attack slammed into him, sending him flying back. "Nice shot, kid," Dante shouted, admiring Naruto's focus. But the Guardian wasn't done yet. He regained his footing, his sword glowing with an eerie light. "You think you've won? This castle is my domain. You cannot defeat me here." Naruto smirked. "We'll see about that." The room began to warp once again, the walls closing in, and the ground began to shake violently. A massive torrent of energy erupted from the Guardian, creating shock waves that rattled the entire room. "We need to end this now," Naruto shouted. Dante nodded, his expression hardening. "I've got just the thing." With a sudden movement, Dante summoned Ifrit, his fiery form glowing bright. He leaped into the air, landing directly behind the Guardian. With a single motion, Dante slammed his fist into the ground, releasing a massive shock wave of energy that sent the Guardian sprawling. "Now, kid," Dante shouted. Naruto grinned. "You got it?" He focused all his energy, channeling the power of the Nine-Tails combined with the dark energy of Limbo. With a roar, he unleashed a devastating attack, a massive energy beam that collided with the Guardian, engulfing him in flames and dark energy. The Guardian screamed as the energy consumed him, his form disintegrating into ash. The entire room seemed to explode with the force of the attack, collapsing in on itself. Naruto and Dante stood side by side, breathing heavily but victorious. The once grand castle was now in ruins, the very foundation crumbling beneath their feet. "Is it over?" Naruto asked, looking around the ruined space. Dante cracked his neck. "I think so. But this place is definitely not what I expected." Naruto smirked. "Yeah, but we did it. And that's all that matters." Dante grinned. "You've got some fire in you, kid. I think you'll fit right in with the rest of the demon hunters." Naruto chuckled, the tension from the battle slowly easing away. "We make a pretty good team, huh?" Dante gave him a nod. "Yeah, not bad at all." But before either could say anything further, the ground began to tremble once more. "Dante, what now?" The roof above them started to crack open, a dark figure emerging from the shadows. "Looks like this adventure isn't over yet," Dante said, drawing his sword. Naruto smirked, his tails flaring behind him. "I'm ready." And just like that, they prepared for the next fight in a world full of darkness, demons, and endless challenges. Naruto leaped into the fray, his five-tailed Kyuubi chakra blazing with intensity. He dashed towards Nelo Angelo with a battle cry, swinging Purgatory in a wide arc to assist Dante. Nelo's eyes narrowed in recognition of the combined threat, and he blocked the incoming attack with his broadsword, causing sparks to fly from the impact. The battle intensified, both sides showing no mercy. Naruto's chakra tails whipped around him like serpents, forcing Nelo to stay on the defensive. Each of Naruto's strikes, enhanced by the power of the Kyuubi, carried the weight of his hatred and frustration with his journey. Every slash, every strike he made, was fueled by the isolation and abandonment he'd suffered. He wasn't just fighting to win, he was fighting to prove that he was more than just a child discarded by fate. Dante, sensing his opening, launched himself toward Nelo with the laster crackling with lightning. He moved with speed and precision, his blade slicing through the air as if guided by instinct. Nelo, however, wasn't as easily caught off guard. He summoned a barrage of ethereal swords, each one aiming for Dante and Naruto alike. Naruto's tails shot out, deflecting some of the summoned blades, while Dante expertly parried and dodged others, his smirk never wavering. Nelo, realizing the combined force of the two, backed away, his sword glowing brighter as he began charging up a devastating attack. The air around him grew heavy, and a dark aura enveloped his form. "This is where it ends," Nelo growled, his voice dripping with contempt. He slashed the air with his broadsword, and in an instant, a massive shockwave erupted from the tip of his blade, sending everything in its path flying backward. Naruto was prepared. His chukar tails flared as he planted his feet firmly on the ground, absorbing the shockwave with the power of the Kyuubi. Dante, on the other hand, didn't seem to care at all. He merely laughed, his demonic power surging as he powered through the attack. "What's the matter, Virgil? Don't tell me you're getting soft," Dante taunted as he closed the gap once again. Nelo's eyes flickered with irritation. "I am not Virgil," he spat, before dashing forward with his blade raised high. Naruto and Dante acted in unison. As Nelo closed in, Dante performed a series of rapid stabs, forcing Nelo to deflect with his sword. Meanwhile, Naruto's chukar tails shot forward like spears, aiming to bind Nelo and restrict his movements. Nelo's reflexes were fast, but the combined assault was too much. For a brief moment, his guard faltered, and that was all they needed. Dante swung a laster, releasing a burst of lightning that blasted Nelo backward, his body crashing into one of the nearby pillars. Before Nelo could recover, Naruto was on him, swinging purgatory with the force of a hurricane. The blade met its target, slashing across Nelo's chest, causing a spray of dark blood to splatter across the room. Nelo staggered back, his breathing ragged, but his eyes were alight with fury. "You think this is over?" he hissed, clutching his chest as it began to heal rapidly. "Not by a long shot," Dante said with a grin, a flare of demonic energy igniting around him as he readied for another round. "We're just getting started, Virgil." Naruto's eyes narrowed at the mention of Virgil's name. He had heard that name from Dante before, but he still didn't understand the significance. All he knew was that the fight wasn't over. It wasn't just Nelo they were fighting. This was a battle against everything that had shaped them, against their pasts, their identities, and their destinies. With a growl, Nelo rushed forward again, swinging his broadsword in a wide arc. Dante and Naruto both reacted in tandem. Dante ducked under the slash, spinning to the side, while Naruto launched himself into the air, using his chukar tails to propel him high above Nelo. In the air, Naruto raised purgatory above his head, preparing for a devastating aerial strike. The moment he was above Nelo, he descended like a comet, his blade glowing with dark energy from the Kyuubi's chakra. He aimed directly for Nelo's head. But Nelo wasn't out of tricks just yet. With an explosive burst of power, Nelo vanished, teleporting behind Naruto just as the blade was about to make contact. In an instant, Nelo's sword flashed, catching Naruto off guard. The blade scraped across his side, causing Naruto to grunt in pain, but his Kyuubi chakra flared up again, healing the wound almost instantly. "Not bad," Naruto muttered, his eyes flashing with renewed determination. "But you're not going to win this." Dante took advantage of Nelo's distraction, charging forward with lightning speed. With a powerful swing of a laster, he sent a surge of electricity through Nelo's body, causing him to stagger. "That's more like it," Dante shouted, reveling in the fight. Naruto joined in, summoning his chakra tails to whip around Nelo, pinning him down while Dante readied his next strike. Time to finish this. Dante roared, his blade glowing with raw power. But Nelo, with a desperate roar, summoned all his remaining strength. He exploded outward in a shock wave, knocking both Naruto and Dante back. The force was so intense that the entire throne room seemed to shake. As the dust settled, Nelo stood tall, bloodied but not broken. "You think I'm done?" he sneered. "I've only just begun." Naruto stood up, brushing off the debris and glaring at the demon. "You're not getting away this time, Virgil," he growled, his voice full of venom. "Yeah, you keep talking," Dante quipped, cracking his knuckles as he approached. "But we're not listening anymore." The battle raged on, each blow they landed on Nelo pushing them all closer to the breaking point. But with every strike, Naruto felt his resolve strengthening. This fight was no longer just about survival. It was about proving to himself that he wasn't just a tool, a weapon, or a mistake. He was powerful, and he was in control of his own destiny. And with that thought, he leaped forward once more, purgatory raised high, ready to end this battle once and for all. The throne room was quiet for a moment, the calm before the storm. Nelo's ominous form had vanished, leaving only the echoes of battle in the air. Naruto lay on the floor, chest heaving as he recovered from the fierce battle that had nearly drained him of his strength. Beside him, Dante stood tall, his expression unreadable as he gazed at the newly summoned sword in his hand. The demonic aura surrounding the sword seemed to radiate power, its blood-red hue contrasting sharply against the dimly lit room. Sparda. The legendary sword that had once been wielded by his father, the sword Dante had long sought to claim as his own. Now, in his hands, it pulsed with energy, ancient, formidable energy. Naruto finally rose to his feet, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten as he stared at the sword in awe. That's the real deal," he muttered, his voice filled with a mix of shock and admiration. Dante glanced at him with a small smile. "Yeah." Virgil would have been proud if he hadn't fallen so far into madness. He gave the sword a few experimental swings, each one slicing through the air effortlessly. The blade hummed with power, its dark energy coursing through Dante's veins. "I don't know if Virgil's pride would mean much to him right now," Naruto said, shaking his head. "But hey, I can't deny, that thing looks like it could wipe out entire armies with a single swing." Dante didn't respond immediately, his eyes fixed on the blade in his hand. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air. The brother he had spent years fighting against, the brother who had once been his equal, had been defeated. Now, with the sword Sparda in his possession, Dante was more powerful than ever. But the victory felt hollow. "You did great, kid," Dante finally said, breaking the silence. "Maybe it wasn't such a bad idea bringing you along after all." Naruto gave him a tired, but sincere smile. "Yeah, well, I didn't exactly plan to get my ass kicked half the time, but we got it done, didn't we?" Dante chuckled, the sound dry and hollow. "Yeah. We did." But despite the victory, the feeling of peace was fleeting. Dante could sense it, just as he knew something was still missing. The battle with Nelo had been just the beginning. The final confrontation, the one that would truly define their fates, still loomed ahead. "We've only just started," Dante muttered, more to himself than Naruto. He turned toward the large, ornate doors of the throne room. "We've got bigger problems on the horizon, and I don't think it's over yet." Naruto followed Dante's gaze. A sense of dread settled in his stomach. "What now?" Dante glanced back at him, a serious look in his eyes. "Now, we find out what Trish has been up to. I have a feeling she's been holding back a lot more than she's letting on." Before Naruto could respond, the air in the room suddenly grew colder. A deep rumbling sound vibrated through the walls, followed by a distant, eerie voice. Trish, Virgil has been defeated. You know what you must do. The voice echoed with a sinister power that sent chills down both their spines. Dante's expression hardened. So it begins. Naruto could sense the shift in the atmosphere. Something was coming, something far darker than anything they had faced before. And they were about to walk right into it? Dante unsheathed Sparda and adjusted his stance. We don't have time to waste. Let's move. Naruto nodded, activating his chakra as he stood beside Dante, ready for whatever was next. Let's finish this. The two of them moved toward the doors, which suddenly slammed open with a deafening crash, revealing a long, shadowy corridor that led deeper into the heart of the castle. Meanwhile, in the depths of the castle, Trish stood before the massive statue, her gaze fixed on its three unblinking eyes. The stone statue was silent, but the air around it was charged with an unnatural energy, its presence both terrifying and commanding. She could feel it in her bones, the weight of the task ahead of her. Trish, Virgil has been defeated. You know what you must do. The voice was calm, yet it carried a certain finality that made her heart race. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Yes, Master, she whispered, her voice barely audible. With a final glance at the statue, Trish raised her hand and placed it against the stone. The instant her skin made contact, the ground beneath her feet trembled. The eyes of the statue began to glow with a dark, eerie light, and the stone surface cracked open like the shell of an ancient egg. From within the statue emerged a pulsating mass of dark energy, swirling around in violent spirals. It was as if the very essence of despair and destruction had been bottled up for centuries, waiting for the moment it would be unleashed. Trish's expression remained stoic, but her heart beat faster. She knew what this meant. She had no choice now. The master had given his command, and it was time for her to fulfill it. Let the ritual begin. As her words echoed through the chamber, the swirling energy intensified, drawing in the surrounding darkness. The walls of the castle seemed to groan under the strain, as if the very foundation of the world was about to crack. Back in the throne room, Dante and Naruto had reached the final chamber. The doors loomed before them, ancient and imposing, their surfaces adorned with runes and symbols of a long-lost language. The air was thick with tension as the two prepared to face whatever awaited them on the other side. Ready? Dante asked, glancing at Naruto with a small grin. Naruto smirked back, his eyes gleaming with the fire of a warrior. Always. Without another word, they pushed open the doors and stepped into the unknown. Inside the chamber, they were greeted by an eerie silence. The room was massive, filled with towering statues of unknown demonic entities, their eyes watching with unblinking precision. At the far end of the room stood a large, ornate altar, surrounded by dark sigils carved into the floor. And standing in front of the altar, her back turned toward them, was Trish. Trish. Dante called out, his voice firm. She slowly turned around, her expression unreadable. The air around her was thick with the same dark energy that had consumed the statue earlier. In her hand, she held a glowing orb, the source of the energy that filled the room. Dante, Trish said, her voice cold and distant. I knew you would come. But you're too late. Naruto stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. What is this? What's going on, Trish? Trish's lips curled into a faint smile. You'll see soon enough. With a sudden, sharp motion, she threw the orb into the air. It exploded in a flash of blinding light, and the ground beneath them trembled as if the world itself was breaking apart. Everything, Trish continued, is about to change. And in that moment, the world did. Naruto frowned at the sight of the magic circle on the ground, the air thick with tension. The stillness of the fountain courtyard seemed to mock him, its eerie silence only broken by the faint crackle of fire from the torches. Dante was right, though there was something unsettling about the place, and Naruto could feel it gnawing at the edges of his consciousness. "All right, I think I get it," Naruto muttered under his breath, cracking his knuckles. "A trap. Of course." His fingers twitched as his mind raced, anticipating the incoming threat. He wasn't the kind of person to just stand there and wait for danger to find him. Dante, on the other hand, was already a step ahead. He had approached the alcove where the lion statue once stood, his eyes scanning the engraving that had appeared in its place. The words were old, cryptic, and written in a language Naruto didn't recognize. But Dante's grin grew wider as he deciphered the meaning. "This is it," Dante said, his voice sharp with anticipation. "The philosopher's egg is supposed to go here. It seems we've just found its final destination." He shot a glance at Naruto, his smile betraying a sense of excitement. "Something tells me we're about to get a real challenge now." Naruto glanced back at the circle, a sense of unease creeping up his spine. "This is starting to feel more like a setup than a reward," he muttered, narrowing his eyes. "No kidding," Dante quipped, stepping forward and placing the golden egg onto the pedestal in front of the magic circle. The moment the egg made contact, the air seemed to hum with energy, the circle on the floor glowing with an intense, otherworldly light. Without warning, the ground beneath them shook violently, the walls of the courtyard groaning as if something was stirring from deep within the castle's foundations. Naruto braced himself, his senses heightened. "This doesn't feel right." A low, guttural sound reverberated through the room, followed by a chilling voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You dare awaken me?" The voice was cold, filled with ancient malice. "You shall regret this, mortals." Naruto's eyes widened. "I knew it. I knew it was too easy." Dante, unfazed, chuckled. "What, you thought it was all going to be sunshine and rainbows? This is a demon castle, kid. Nothing's ever that simple." Before Naruto could respond, the very air around them began to distort. A massive, dark figure materialized before them, a grotesque creature with 6 arms, each holding a different weapon, its body a mass of shifting shadows. The demon towered over them, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly fire. Its presence alone seemed to drain the room of light. "So, you're the one who's been hiding in the shadows all this time," Dante said, cracking his knuckles as he faced the creature. His grin remained, though there was a certain tension in his stance now. "I gotta say, you look a lot scarier than I expected." Naruto gripped his fists, feeling the familiar surge of chakra coursing through his body. His eyes narrowed as he analyzed the demon. "This guy's not going to be a walk in the park. We need a plan." "Plan?" Dante scoffed. "Who needs a plan when you've got this?" He raised his sword, the devil sword Sparda glowing in his hand. "Come at me, you overgrown cockroach." Naruto's instincts screamed at him to move, but before either he or Dante could make a move, the demon lunged. It was fast, too fast. The ground shook with each step, and the air seemed to compress around its enormous form. Dante's reflexes were sharp, and he dodged the first attack, leaping into the air with the fluidity that Naruto envied. He spun midair, slashing down at the demon's exposed shoulder with Sparda. The blade connected, but the demon barely flinched. Its body seemed to absorb the blow as if it were nothing more than a scratch. Naruto was momentarily stunned by the sheer resilience of the creature. "This guy's tough," he muttered under his breath. "Yeah, I noticed," Dante retorted, kicking off the ground and launching himself into the fray again, this time with a flurry of rapid strikes. "We'll need to break its guard first. Keep your distance and look for an opening." Naruto nodded, his thoughts racing. He knew he couldn't fight at full power in this place, not yet. But he had to contribute. He wasn't about to sit back while Dante took all the hits. Naruto quickly analyzed the creature's movements. It swung its massive arms with terrifying force, but there was a rhythm to its attacks. The demon seemed to focus on Dante, which gave Naruto a window of opportunity. Without wasting any more time, Naruto charged in, weaving through the creature's strikes. He couldn't use his full strength, but he had his own tricks. A burst of chakra flared from his body, enhancing his speed and agility as he moved toward the demon's legs. He dove between its legs, narrowly avoiding a swipe that would have cleaved him in half. In one fluid motion, Naruto launched a barrage of kunao at the creature's exposed side, but the demon blocked the attack effortlessly, its monstrous arms swatting the weapons away like they were flies. Naruto growled in frustration, realizing that normal weapons weren't going to cut it. But then, something caught his eye. The glowing red gem at the center of the demon's chest flickered, its light pulsing in a strange rhythm. "That's it," Naruto muttered. "The weak spot." He turned back to Dante, who was still locked in battle with the demon. "Dante." "The chest. The gem, it's the weak spot." Dante didn't miss a beat. "Got it?" With a powerful leap, he used his agility to dodge another massive strike and propelled himself directly toward the demon's chest. His sword shimmered with demonic energy as he aimed for the red gem. The creature roared in fury, its enormous hands reaching out to stop him, but Dante was too fast. With a devastating strike, he drove Sparda deep into the glowing gem. The impact was cataclysmic. An explosion of light and dark energy erupted from the point of contact, sending shock waves through the courtyard. Naruto had to shield his eyes from the blinding light. He could feel the pressure in the air, the very essence of the demon's power cracking under the force of Dante's strike. The demon let out a final, guttural scream before disintegrating into nothingness, its body dissolving into dark mist. Dante landed gracefully on the ground, his sword still humming with residual energy. He glanced over at Naruto, a smirk on his face. "Not bad, kid. You actually did something useful for once." Naruto grinned, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "I told you I could keep up." Yeah, Dante said, sheathing his sword. "You did all right. But this was just the appetizer. There's still more to come." Naruto raised an eyebrow, a small laugh escaping his lips. "You're really enjoying this, aren't you?" "Wouldn't be much fun if I wasn't," Dante replied, his smile wide and carefree. "Now let's get moving. We've still got a castle to conquer." Naruto's smile faded a little, but he nodded. "Right. Let's get this over with." The room was eerily silent as Naruto and Dante stepped into the cathedral's grand entrance. The colossal doors creaked to a close behind them, shutting them in with the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to suffocate the very air. They stood in a vast, dimly lit hall, shadows crawling across the stone floor like something alive. The silence was suffocating, broken only by their footsteps. Naruto couldn't shake the feeling of dread that gnawed at him. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, to flee this place, but his pride and stubbornness wouldn't let him. He wasn't a coward. He would face whatever this place had to offer. Beside him, Dante's confidence was palpable. He had faced countless demons, and yet, something about this cathedral felt different. He didn't show it outwardly, but Naruto could feel it, a crackling tension that surged with the raw power of something much older, much darker. "Stay sharp, kid," Dante muttered, eyes narrowing as he scanned the surroundings. "We've come too far to let our guard down now." The temperature in the room dropped noticeably as they ventured deeper into the cathedral. The oppressive aura thickened, and Naruto's senses screamed that they were being washed. His grip tightened around purgatory, his senses sharp, waiting for an attack to come from the shadows. They reached the center of the cathedral, and there, standing at the far end, was a figure cloaked in darkness. The figure's eyes glowed a cold, unfeeling blue, piercing through the shadows. A soft chuckle echoed through the hall, sending a chill down Naruto's spine. "So, you've finally arrived," the figure said in a deep, almost melodic voice. It was a voice that seemed to reverberate through the very walls, like it had existed in the space for centuries. "Who are you?" Dante's voice was calm, but Naruto could tell there was something on the edge of his tone. He was preparing for battle, his hands instinctively moving towards the handle of Sparda. "I am the one who has been waiting for you," the figure responded, stepping forward. As it did, the shadows parted around it, revealing a towering, armored demon with jagged spines protruding from its back. Its helmet was shaped like a skull, with glowing blue eyes that pierced the darkness. The energy it exuded was suffocating, like it was pulling the life force from the very air around him. "This is your final test, Dante, and yours as well, young one," the figure continued, its voice dripping with malice. "You have ventured far, but now you face the true darkness that lies within this world. Your journey ends here." Naruto's eyes narrowed, the demon before them radiating an aura that felt infinitely more dangerous than anything he had ever felt before. He could feel his demonic chakra stirring within him, but he didn't dare tap into it just yet. Not without knowing what he was up against. Dante grinned, his confidence unwavering. "I'm not the type to back down from a fight, you know that." The figure let out a low growl, its hand outstretched, and with a single, fluid motion, a surge of dark energy erupted from it, cracking the stone beneath their feet. It was a powerful attack, and Naruto barely had time to react as the energy expanded rapidly, sweeping toward them. "Watch out!" Dante shouted, leaping into action. His sword transformed into its side form, and he swung it down, sending a shockwave of energy to counter the dark surge. Naruto was already moving, instinctively drawing upon the power within him. He couldn't let Dante do all the work. Not this time. With a burst of speed, Naruto darted forward, dodging the debris that flew toward him. He focused his mind, allowing his body to flow like water, anticipating the demon's next move. The figure didn't seem to care about the attack being deflected, it was already preparing another, more powerful onslaught. Its hand began to glow with a deep, abyssal light as it summoned an orb of dark energy, large enough to engulf them both. "Kid, get out of the way," Dante shouted, moving to intercept the attack. But Naruto didn't move. Instead, his eyes flashed with an intense determination. He wasn't going to back down this time. His thoughts drifted to the powers he had inherited, the strength that lay dormant within him. It was time to test just how much of that power he could control. He reached deep within, tapping into the reservoir of dark energy within him. His chakra flared, his senses heightened. It was as if the world slowed around him. Every movement of the demon, every subtle shift in the air, became visible, like it was all playing out in slow motion. With a surge of willpower, Naruto raised Purgatory, the sword glowing with the dark, ominous energy. He could feel the blade responding to his power, thrumming with the same dark intensity that emanated from the figure before them. He wasn't just going to fight this time, he was going to destroy it. As the demon hurled its dark orb toward them, Naruto leaped into the air, his body twisting with inhuman grace. With a battle cry, he swung Purgatory down in a powerful arc, his blade meeting the demon's attack head-on. The impact sent shockwaves through the cathedral, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The orb of dark energy shattered, fragments of shadow scattering in all directions as Naruto's attack tore through it. The demon recoiled, surprised by the sheer power of Naruto's strike. It was more than just a sword, there was something else in that blow, something primal. Something that made the demon pause, if only for a moment. "Impressive," the demon growled, its blue eyes narrowing. "But it won't be enough." Naruto smirked, his grip tightening on the sword. "We'll see about that." With a roar, the demon lunged, summoning dark tendrils from the ground, each one aiming to strike Naruto down. But Naruto was faster. He moved like a blur, dodging and slashing with precision. His body moved almost instinctively, the combination of his training and his newfound power making him a blur of motion. Beside him, Dante was already in the fray, his own weapon cleaving through the air with deadly accuracy. The battle was chaotic, the air thick with energy as the two of them fought against the overwhelming force of the demon before them. But even as they fought, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. This cathedral, this demon, was just the first part of something much larger. Whatever force had brought them here wasn't finished with them yet. Stay focused, kid. Dante's voice broke through Naruto's thoughts, and he quickly refocused on the battle at hand. The demon was still standing, though its movements were slower now, as though the force of their attacks was beginning to take its toll. It was only a matter of time before they broke through its defenses. Naruto grinned, his resolve strengthening. This was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. With a final, decisive strike, Naruto lunged forward, slashing purgatory through the demon's chest. The force of the blow sent the demon reeling, its body collapsing into a heap of ash and darkness. The power it had exuded slowly dissipated, leaving the cathedral eerily silent once more. Dante exhaled a breath of relief, wiping his brow. That was too close. Naruto stood over the demon's remains, panting but smiling. Yeah, but we did it? Dante's smile faded, though, and his expression grew serious. He looked at Naruto for a long moment before speaking. You did good, kid. But don't get cocky. This is just the beginning. There's more to come. Naruto nodded, his gaze steady. I know. And I'm ready for it. They walked away from the battlefield, their footsteps echoing through the empty cathedral. Both knew that this was only one chapter in a much larger story. But for now, they had won. Naruto nodded quietly, understanding the weight of Dante's words, even if he couldn't completely grasp the depth of the pain Dante was going through. He had never had a mother, and seeing someone like Trish, someone who was so much like her, betray him must have been like opening old wounds. The gravity of the moment settled heavily in the air, but Naruto knew they couldn't afford to dwell on it for too long. Well, whatever happens, we're still on the same side, right? Naruto said, trying to break the silence with his usual optimistic tone. I'm not going to let you face that bastard Mundus alone. We'll take him down together. Dante smirked at Naruto's words, though there was a hint of melancholy in his expression. Yeah, I guess you're right, kid. We'll take him down together. The two walked deeper into the underworld, the atmosphere around them growing heavier as they ventured into the ring-shaped room. A soft, eerie hum reverberated through the chamber, and the central pillar, massive and pulsating, seemed to have a life of its own. Naruto took a deep breath, feeling the demonic energy that suffused the air. It felt oppressive, like the very environment was waiting for something, maybe a fight, maybe a challenge. It made his senses tingle, the darkness almost suffocating. His tails flickered, each one swishing gently in rhythm with his heartbeat, as if they were alive and responding to the hostile aura around him. Stay sharp, Dante warned. This place, it's where things get real. Naruto didn't need to be told twice. He was already focused, his mind scanning every corner, every shadow, aware of the danger that could strike at any moment. As they approached the pillar, the atmosphere thickened even more, and the faint hum turned into a loud vibration, almost like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled violently, shaking the entire room. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he instinctively dropped into a combat stance. He didn't have time to think before the ground split open, revealing a massive figure emerging from the cracks. Great, Dante muttered. More of these bastards. The creature that emerged was like nothing Naruto had ever seen before. Its body was a grotesque mass of muscle, with tendrils, and sharp, jagged limbs that seemed to writhe as it moved. Its head was monstrous, a skull-like face with glowing red eyes that locked onto them with a primal hunger. That's one of Mundus' elite, Dante muttered, his tone serious. Be careful. These things are no joke. The creature growled, its mouth opening wide to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. It took a step forward, sending a shockwave through the room, the very air itself vibrating with its power. Naruto could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end as it charged. Without a second thought, Naruto leapt into action, his body surrounded by the five-tailed cloak, the chakra of the nine tails fueling his speed. In the blink of an eye, he was in the air, hurtling toward the creature with purgatory drawn and ready to strike. His speed was almost blinding, and as he got close, he twisted mid-air, slashing down with all the power he could muster. The creature blocked the attack with one of its monstrous limbs, but the force behind the blow sent shockwaves through the room, causing cracks to form in the floor beneath them. The creature let out a roar of pain, but it wasn't down. It countered, swinging its massive claw toward Naruto. Naruto was already on the move, flipping backward in a blur of motion. The claw narrowly missed him, but the gust of wind from the swipe was enough to send him crashing into the pillar, shaking the ground beneath him. He grimaced, the impact rattling his body, but he quickly regained his footing. Dante wasn't far behind. With a burst of speed, he activated his devil trigger, his form becoming more demonic as his power surged. He dashed in with lightning-fast strikes, his sword cracking through the air. Each slash seemed to make the creature flinch, but it was far from defeated. The thing was tough. "I'll handle the head, you take the limbs," Dante shouted, his voice booming as he launched himself at the creature, his sword glowing with demonic energy. Naruto nodded, feeling the weight of the battle ahead. He charged again, purgatory raised, his chakra cloak swirling around him. The creature roared as it reared up, but Naruto wasn't going to give it the chance to retaliate. He zoomed in, using his speed to deliver precise, targeted slashes to the creature's limbs, severing one of them in a single strike. It howled in pain, staggering back, but it quickly grew another limb in place of the one he cut off. "This thing just doesn't quit," Naruto growled. He was getting frustrated. He had to find a way to finish this, and fast. He glanced over at Dante, who was locked in a fierce battle with the creature's head. Dante's sword was cutting deep into its skull, but the creature was still alive. Its body seemed to regenerate with terrifying speed. Naruto gritted his teeth, focusing. His chakra flared, the nine tails energy surging around him as he pushed even harder. His eyes gleamed with a dangerous light, and he lunged once more, this time aiming directly for the creature's heart. The creature let out a deafening roar as Naruto slammed into it, purgatory piercing through its chest with brutal force. Blood exploded from the wound, but even as it seemed to collapse, the creature's body contorted and twisted in agony, its form warping and shifting as if trying to regrow itself. Naruto's eyes widened. "This thing is..." Before he could finish, the creature exploded in a burst of dark energy, knocking both him and Dante back. The force of the blast sent them both flying, crashing into the walls of the room. The creature was gone, but its death had created a ripple effect of energy that filled the room with a sense of impending doom. Dante slowly stood up, dusting himself off. "Tough bastard," he muttered, wiping a bit of blood from his lip. Naruto pushed himself to his feet, shaking his head to clear the dizziness. He felt the weight of the battle on his body, but the rush of adrenaline kept him sharp. That was insane. What now? Dante looked toward the now vacant space where the creature had been. "Now we move forward. The real challenge is yet to come." Naruto nodded, his eyes burning with determination. "Then let's keep going. I'm ready for whatever comes next." With that, they advanced once again, stepping over the remnants of the creature's destruction. The air still hummed with energy, and the sense of dread hung heavily in the room. But Naruto wasn't afraid. He had a mission, and nothing, no matter how dangerous, was going to stop him from seeing it through. Naruto's heart raced as the intense aura emanated from Dante's transformed body. The power radiating from him was unlike anything Naruto had felt before. Even with all the strength he had accumulated from his nine-tails chakra and the darkness within him, he could feel Dante's transformation pushing his own limits. Mundus, towering over them in his monstrous form, laughed a deep, thunderous sound that echoed through the marble chamber. His enormous wings flapped, causing gusts of wind that sent waves of debris and dust swirling around the room. "You believe you can defeat me, Sparda's progeny?" Mundus boomed, his voice dripping with disdain. "You and your mortal friend are nothing compared to my true power." Dante grinned, unfazed by Mundus's mocking words. "I'm not here to play games. I'm here to end this once and for all," he said, his voice a dangerous calm. Naruto felt a surge of energy course through him. The additional 8 chakra cloaks swirling behind him were like nothing he'd ever experienced before. They danced in the air like fiery tails, each one giving off a menacing glow. The power was raw, untamed, and felt more connected to the demonic side of him than ever before. The fusion of his chakra and demonic energies created an unholy synergy that he could feel coursing through every fiber of his being. "I'm not here to back down either, Mundus," Naruto said, his voice low but filled with unwavering resolve. His grip on purgatory tightened, the blade now wrapped in his newly amplified chakra. The sword shimmered with an intensity that mirrored the demonic power he wielded. With the nine-tails chakra enhancing his physical abilities and Waiwaka's darkness giving him an almost godlike presence, Naruto could feel he was ready to take on whatever came his way. "You don't know what you're up against," Mundus sneered, his eye-like core glowing ominously as his wings spread wider, casting a shadow over the room. His form rippled with energy, and the ground trembled beneath his feet. He raised one hand, his fingers twitching as cracks spread across the marble floor. "I've been around for far longer than you can fathom, boy," Mundus continued, his voice growing darker, "and I've killed gods. You are nothing but a bug to be crushed underfoot." "That's where you're wrong," Dante shot back, pointing Sparda at Mundus. His eyes blazed with a new intensity, the power coursing through him almost too much to contain. "This time, you're the one who's going down." Naruto didn't wait for the words to sink in. He lunged forward, his enhanced speed carrying him across the room in an instant. The 8 chakra cloaks behind him whipped around, creating a blur of red and black as he swung purgatory at Mundus. Mundus, however, was ready. His massive wings flapped once, sending a shockwave that sent Naruto flying back. But Naruto was quick to recover, landing with ease and skidding across the floor before coming to a halt. His eyes narrowed as he stared at Mundus. "Impressive," Mundus said, his voice deepening. "But it's not enough." Naruto's heart pounded in his chest as he pushed off the ground again. His body was surrounded by his chakra as he formed multiple clones, each one wielding a version of purgatory. The clones surged toward Mundus from all angles, their weapons gleaming in the dim light of the chamber. Mundus sneered, his eye glowing brighter as he raised his hand. "Pathetic tricks." With a swipe of his arm, a massive beam of light shot from his palm, obliterating Naruto's clones in an instant. The explosion rocked the room, sending shards of marble flying in every direction. But Naruto was already moving again, appearing in front of Mundus with his sword raised high. "Your move," Naruto growled. Before Mundus could react, Naruto slashed downward, his blade crackling with demonic energy. But Mundus was faster, his massive form twisting and dodging the attack with ease. He countered with a barrage of energy blasts, each one nearly disintegrating the air around him as they tore through the room. Naruto was forced to dodge, leaping to the side and narrowly avoiding a blast that would have torn him apart. His eyes were focused, his mind calculating his every move as he used the power of his chakra and the newfound demon abilities to stay one step ahead. "Is this all you have?" Mundus taunted, his voice booming across the chamber. "You may have the power of a demon, but you're still just immortal." Naruto's eyes narrowed, his teeth gritted in anger. He couldn't afford to hold back any longer. The energy in his body surged, and he could feel the raw power of the Nine Tails and the dark forces inside him growing even stronger. "Then I'll show you what I can really do," Naruto muttered, his voice low and dangerous. With a roar, he shot forward once again, his blade glowing with an otherworldly light. This time, when he swung, the sheer force of the strike created a shockwave that sent the room shaking. Mundus barely managed to deflect the attack with his own powers, but Naruto's strike still left a massive gouge in the air itself. "Damn you!" Mundus roared, his form flickering with rage. He summoned a massive ball of energy in his palm, holding it aloft as it began to crackle with destructive power. Dante, seeing the energy ball, didn't hesitate. He charged forward, his blade Sparda raised, and with one swift motion, he cleaved through the air, sending a barrage of energy beams at Mundus. "Die, you bastard!" Dante shouted as the beams collided with the energy ball, causing an explosion that rocked the entire chamber. The shock wave blasted Naruto off his feet, but he quickly recovered, glaring at Mundus as he stood back up. "You think you can defeat me together?" Mundus's voice was tinged with disbelief. "You will never be a match for me." But it was too late. Naruto and Dante had reached a new level of synergy, their attacks now in perfect unison. Naruto, using his enhanced speed and strength, weaved through the battlefield, distracting Mundus while Dante prepared for the final blow. "I think it's time we finish this," Dante said, grinning. Naruto nodded, determination in his eyes. He summoned all of his energy, channeling it into purgatory. The blade hummed with power, as if it too recognized the gravity of the moment. With a roar, Naruto surged forward, slashing at Mundus with every ounce of strength he had left. Dante was right behind him, unleashing an array of devastating blows. Mundus, now realizing the true threat before him, attempted to defend himself, but it was too late. The combined might of Naruto's chakra and Dante's demonic powers overwhelmed him. With one final, powerful strike, Naruto and Dante sent their swords crashing into Mundus's core, causing a brilliant explosion of light and energy that filled the room. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the light dimmed, and the once powerful form of Mundus crumbled into nothingness. The room fell still, the echoes of battle fading into silence. Naruto and Dante stood side by side, panting from exhaustion, but victorious. "It's over," Naruto said, his voice a mixture of relief and triumph. Dante grinned. "Yeah, but I couldn't have done it without you, kid." Naruto smirked. "I think I did my fair share too." The two shared a laugh, the weight of their battle finally lifting as they turned their attention to the ruins of Mundus's form. But even as they stood victorious, Naruto knew this wasn't the end. The road ahead would still be difficult, filled with challenges. But for now, they had earned their victory. Together, they walked away from the shattered remnants of Mundus's throne, ready for whatever came next. The voice that resonated through the room sent a chill down Naruto's spine. He recognized that voice. Despite its deep and ominous tone, it was one that had been buried in the back of his mind for years. "Kyuubi." Naruto muttered weakly as he forced his head to lift, the weight of his body making it difficult to focus. His vision was blurry, and his senses were still sluggish from the aftermath of the battle. Where am I?" The massive cage loomed ahead of him, its bars shimmering with an unnatural red light. Beyond the iron, he could see two glowing slitted eyes staring at him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. The Kyuubi, the Nine Tails, was locked away in that cage once more, but there was something different about this moment. Something ominous. "You're not in hell, kid," the Kyuubi's voice rumbled with a menacing chuckle. "And you're certainly not in heaven. You're somewhere much more interesting. Somewhere that belongs to me." Naruto tried to sit up, but his body felt as though it had been weighed down by invisible chains. His chakra was absent. The usual warm, ever-present presence of the Nine Tails' power was gone, replaced by a cold void. It felt like part of him had been ripped away. What do you mean, belongs to you? Naruto asked, his voice hoarse. His throat ached, as if he had been choking for hours. What is this place? Where is Dante? What happened to me? The Kyuubi let out a low growl, its massive eyes narrowing. You're in my domain now. Your little bond with your father has been severed. That mortal's love and concern for you only weakened you. You threw yourself into a futile act of heroism, and in doing so, you sealed your fate. Naruto's heart sank as the words hit him like a physical blow. Dante. His father, the one who had shown him what it meant to be loved, to belong. Had he really lost him? I couldn't just let her. Naruto began, but the Kyuubi cut him off with a snarl. Compassion. It's always the same with you humans, the Nine-Tails spat bitterly. You think you can save everyone. That pitiful weakness will get you killed every time. The Kyuubi's voice softened slightly. And now, look where it has brought you. You're dead, and you're alone. Naruto's mind swam with thoughts and emotions. Dante's words echoed in his head. We're family. That bond. Was it truly gone? Dante had fought so hard for him, and Naruto had given everything in return. He wasn't ready to accept this end, not after everything. I won't stay here, Naruto growled, his fists clenched, his body shaking with a mix of anger and desperation. I won't let it end like this. A laugh rumbled from the Kyuubi's throat. You can struggle all you want, kid, but you're trapped. This place is mine now. Your body, your soul, everything is under my control. There was an eerie pause. But, of course, you're not completely without hope. You still have one little thing left in your favor. Naruto's eyes widened slightly. What are you talking about? A sinister chuckle echoed around the chamber as the Kyuubi's eyes gleamed with malicious amusement. Your death, your connection to the other world, and the forces at play. It has triggered a change. A change that will make you stronger than you ever were before. It's not the end, kid. It's just the beginning. Naruto's confusion only deepened. He tried to push himself up again, focusing on the feeling of his body, hoping for some sign of strength, but all he could feel was the weight of exhaustion, of helplessness. And yet, there was something flickering at the edges of his awareness. It wasn't the Kyuubi's chakra, it was something else. What's happening to me? Naruto muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Ah, you finally noticed, the Kyuubi said, its tone laced with both satisfaction and a hint of pride. Your connection to that demon is not entirely severed. You've been marked, Naruto. Whether you like it or not, you are bound to him now. To me. And to the new power that has awakened inside you. Naruto's mind reeled as he tried to process the Kyuubi's words. Bound. New power? What was the Nine-Tails talking about? Suddenly, a surge of raw energy rippled through Naruto's body. It felt like a fire had ignited inside of him, burning away the numbness. His chakra returned, but it was different, darker, more intense. It was overwhelming, and Naruto had to grit his teeth to keep from being consumed by it. What is this? He gasped as he struggled to keep his balance. The air around him shimmered with the newfound energy that seemed to be coursing through his veins. This power. It feels like the power of a true demon, perhaps, the Kyuubi interrupted, its tone laced with amusement. You've been marked by a force far beyond your previous understanding, Naruto. The power you gained from that demonic father of yours has fused with my own. You now carry the essence of a god, a being capable of reshaping the world itself. Naruto's heart raced. He had always known that he was different, that there was something extraordinary inside of him, but this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. The Kyuubi wasn't just speaking of his connection to the demon world, it was speaking of something much larger. Something that could change the very fabric of reality. No. I refuse, Naruto growled, standing up despite the pain coursing through his body. I won't let you control me. I won't become just another puppet in your game. The Kyuubi's laughter was deafening, shaking the very walls of the chamber. You think you have a choice, kid? You think you have the strength to resist? No one has ever been able to escape my grasp. Not even Sparda himself. The name hit Naruto like a thunderclap. Sparda. You don't know him. The Kyuubi's voice grew almost mocking. That demon who fought and defeated me once. The one who cast me into the deepest abyss. The one your pathetic father chose to idolize. The Kyuubi's tone grew cold. But that will all be meaningless now. You are mine. Just as he was. Naruto's heart clenched as memories of Dante flooded his mind. He couldn't let this happen. Not to himself, and certainly not to the people he cared about. He couldn't let the Kyuubi, or whatever dark forces had marked him, take over. I will break free, Naruto whispered fiercely, his voice full of resolve. I will not be your puppet. I'll tear down whatever walls you've built and take control of my own fate. The Kyuubi's eyes glowed brighter, and the cage around him seemed to pulse with energy. Very well, kid. Let's see how long your will lasts before you're consumed by the very darkness you now wield. Naruto clenched his fists, feeling the power surge within him once more. The battle for his soul was just beginning, and he knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. But no matter how dark it became, no matter how strong the Kyuubi's grip was, Naruto had one thing the Ninetales would never understand. His own will. Naruto could barely make sense of what was happening around him. His vision blurred, and his body was growing weaker by the second. Yet, there was a strange sense of power creeping in, one that felt familiar but also alien. He could feel the warmth of the golden yellow chakra entering his body, contrasting sharply with the fiery cold of the Ninetales' usual presence. The energy was different, gentler, yet more potent, as if it was weaving something new within him. The Kyuubi, still seated in its lotus position, continued to direct the chakra into Naruto's body, its expression calm but focused. For a moment, everything else faded away, his parents' words, the anger, the pain, all of it disappeared as the chakra coursed through his system. The power felt almost nurturing, wrapping around his spirit and mending it, not just his body, but his very soul. Naruto tried to reach out, to make sense of the situation, but his mind was too clouded. He was dimly aware of his parents and the Kyuubi, but there was no time for questions. There was only this strange, all-consuming warmth, filling the void within him that had been there for so long. Minato watched in silence, his heart heavy with guilt. He had made the right decision, he hoped, but the feeling that he had failed his son remained. The seal had been undone, and now Naruto's life was in the hands of a creature he had once feared. He turned to Kushina, who stood beside him, equally torn but filled with hope. This is the only way, Minato said, though doubt clung to his words. Kushina nodded, her eyes locked on Naruto. He deserves a chance, a real chance. The Kyuubi's chakra continued to flow, its golden strands intertwining with Naruto's own chakra network. The seal on Naruto's abdomen pulsed faintly as the connection between them deepened, the Kyuubi's energy slowly merging with Naruto's. It wasn't just about restoring him, it was about awakening something far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Then, as the last remnants of the seal faded away, Naruto's body tensed. The golden chakra seemed to pour into his very soul, filling the void left by years of neglect, anger, and pain. And then, it happened. A blinding flash erupted from within Naruto's body, dazzling everyone present. Minato shielded his eyes, his heart racing with both fear and hope. He had no idea what to expect, what could possibly come of unsealing the Ninetales after everything that had happened. When the light subsided, Naruto was no longer the same. His form radiated an aura of power, but it was different from anything he had felt before. His eyes, once full of anger and bitterness, were now calm, almost serene. The Kyuubi's golden chakra had melded with him, granting him not just physical strength, but a deep, unshakable resolve. It was as if he had become something more than human, something beyond the reach of ordinary shinobi. Minato and Kushina watched in awe as Naruto slowly rose to his feet. The transformation was both terrifying and beautiful. There was no denying it, Naruto had become something far greater than they had ever imagined. But the Kyuubi was not done yet. "You see, Yondaime," the Kyuubi's voice echoed, still filled with its usual menace, but with an odd note of satisfaction. "This is the true power of the Nine Tails. Not just brute force, but the ability to bring balance, to shape a new future." Minato could feel his heart pounding in his chest as the reality of the situation hit him. This wasn't just about saving Naruto's life. This was about something much bigger. Something that could change the entire course of history. Naruto looked down at his hands, his expression unreadable. He could feel the power coursing through him, and yet, there was no fear. Only an overwhelming certainty that he had finally found his purpose. He turned to face his parents, his eyes no longer filled with anger, but with understanding. Naruto began, his voice steady. "I don't know if I can forgive you for abandoning me. For all the years of pain, but I understand now. You didn't have a choice. But that doesn't mean I'm going to live in your shadow. I have my own path to follow." Minato and Kushina exchanged a glance, both filled with sorrow and acceptance. They had never expected this outcome. But they couldn't deny it. It was clear now that Naruto had become someone entirely different. Someone who didn't need their approval to shape his own destiny. The Kyuubi, sensing the shift in Naruto's resolve, grinned. "That's right, boy. You're not just the vessel of the Nine Tails anymore. You're its master. And now, you are free." Naruto turned to the Kyuubi, his eyes cold but resolute. "I don't need your power to be free. I don't need anyone's approval. I'll forge my own future." The Kyuubi's grin widened, sensing the weight of Naruto's words. "We'll see about that. But first, your little adventure isn't over yet." Before Naruto could respond, a powerful tremor shook the ground beneath them. The sky darkened, and the atmosphere became thick with the presence of something much darker, much more dangerous than anything they had faced before. So it begins," the Kyuubi muttered, as the dark presence of Mundus loomed ever closer. Minato and Kushina exchanged worried glances, but it was clear that this battle was far from over. If anything, it was only the beginning. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of his newfound power inside him. He was ready. Ready to face whatever came next. Because this time, he wasn't alone. This time, he was the one in control. "Mundus," Naruto muttered under his breath. "I don't care who you are. You won't take my future." The battle between Naruto and Mundus was inevitable, but the difference this time was clear. Naruto was no longer just a boy with a cursed past. He was a force in his own right, shaped by his experiences, and now, with the power of the Nine Tails and something far more profound, he was prepared to carve out a new future, one where he wouldn't be defined by anyone else's expectations. It was time to show the world just what a son of Dante and the Kyuubi was truly capable of. The words rang out as a swirling ball of energy appeared in Naruto's hand. It was not the usual Rasengan that he had learned back in Konoha. No, this one was far more devastating. A dark, crimson aura surrounded it, pulsing with the raw power he had inherited from the Nine Tails and the demonic energy coursing through his veins. Naruto grinned as the sphere in his hand began to hum, crackling with power. The energy inside was immense, as if the very fabric of reality itself trembled beneath its weight. "You can feel that, can't you, Mundus?" Naruto said, his voice low, dangerous. "This is the power I wield now. You're not the only one with power." Mundus sneered, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The pressure coming off Naruto was unlike anything he had ever felt, a crushing force that made the air itself seem thicker. Mundus had fought countless powerful beings in his time, but this was different. Naruto's aura was raw, untamed, and filled with an undeniable promise of destruction. "You think your little tricks will save you?" Mundus roared, his wings emerging from his back once again, though they were far weaker than before. The demonic energy in the air began to distort as he flapped them, sending waves of power crashing toward Naruto. But Naruto was already moving. With a single flick of his wrist, he swirled the Raise-Non in his hand, expanding it until it reached the size of a massive sphere. It hummed, vibrating with a dark, otherworldly energy. In an instant, Naruto shot downward like a bolt of lightning, faster than Mundus could react. The force of the Raise-Non collided with Mundus's chest, sending shock waves through the very ground they stood on. The blast was like a small explosion, the air cracking and bending under the pressure. Mundus let out a roar of pain as the Raise-Non tore through his body, obliterating his defense. The once mighty Demon King was thrown backward, crashing into the lava pit with an earth-shattering impact. Dante watched in disbelief as the battle unfolded before him. His heart, still heavy with grief and anger over losing his family, began to swell with a mixture of pride and awe for the young man standing before him. Naruto, who had once been so vulnerable, had now become something far beyond what he had ever imagined. Naruto slowly descended to the ground, the golden light still radiating from his body. The flames that surrounded him seemed to flicker and dance with a life of their own, adding to the already intimidating aura. "Is he dead?" Dante asked, his voice barely a whisper. He had never seen anyone, any demon or human, take down Mundus with such ease. Naruto stood tall, his eyes glowing with the same golden intensity as the rest of his body. He watched as Mundus struggled to rise from the pit of lava, his body smoldering and broken. There was no sign of the formidable Demon King's former power, just a hollow shell of what had been. "He won't be getting up anytime soon," Naruto replied, his voice cool, almost indifferent. Dante blinked, still trying to process everything. "Naruto, what the hell happened to you?" Naruto turned his gaze to Dante, his smile nothing short of eerie. "I'm not the same person I was, Dante. The powers I've acquired have changed me. I've embraced something darker, but this power is mine to command. I'm not the boy you knew." Dante frowned, his instincts telling him that Naruto was right, he wasn't the same. The boy who had once relied on raw instinct and strength had evolved, had become a being of unimaginable power. It was like facing an entirely new enemy, one that could destroy everything in its path with ease. "Does it feel different, having this kind of power?" Dante asked, almost out of curiosity. Naruto looked at him for a moment before answering. "It's intoxicating. At first, I wasn't sure if I was ready for it, but now, I can feel it. I can feel everything. The rage, the power, the hunger. But there's also something else, a need to protect what matters, to honor the memories of those who came before me." Dante nodded, understanding the internal battle that Naruto must have been fighting. Power like that, especially the kind Naruto now wielded, could easily consume someone. It could destroy them if they didn't hold on to who they were. "I'll help you keep that balance," Dante said, his voice firm. Naruto gave him a sharp look, a slight smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "You don't need to worry about me, Dante. I've got this." With that, Naruto turned his attention back to the broken form of Mundus, who was struggling to pull himself from the pit of lava. His once grandiose wings were now nothing but tatters, and his body was severely damaged from the Rasengan's impact. "You're finished, Mundus," Naruto declared, his voice echoing through the battlefield. "Your reign ends here." Mundus let out a guttural laugh, though it was more of a wheeze than anything else. "You think you've won, boy? Even in my weakened state, I can still destroy you." Naruto didn't respond with words. Instead, he raised his hand toward the struggling demon king, his palm open wide. Dark energy began to swirl around him, gathering into a massive sphere of concentrated force. The air vibrated as Naruto poured more and more power into the sphere, watching it grow larger and more destructive with each passing second. "You've had your fun, Mundus. Now it's my turn," Naruto said calmly, before slamming his hand down toward the ground. The energy sphere shot downward, crashing into the pit where Mundus had been. The explosion was deafening, the impact shaking the very foundations of the realm they stood in. Lava and debris flew everywhere, and the very ground beneath them cracked apart as the sheer force of Naruto's attack tore through the air. When the dust settled, nothing remained of Mundus. The once mighty Demon King was nothing but a crater in the ground, his essence erased completely by Naruto's final strike. Dante watched in stunned silence. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with awe. "You actually did it?" Naruto turned to him, his expression a mix of satisfaction and weariness. "It's over. Mundus is gone. But there's more to do. The world, it still needs to be set right." Dante nodded, stepping forward. "Yeah. And you're the one to do it?" Naruto smiled, his demonic features still present, but there was a lightness to his gaze now. "I will." Together, the two of them stood on the edge of the battlefield, the weight of their pasts heavy on their shoulders but the promise of a new future ahead. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And for Naruto, there was no turning back. The power he had gained was now his to command, and he would forge his own path forward. Whether that path led to redemption or further down a darker road, only time would tell. But one thing was certain: he would never be the same again. The ground cracked beneath their feet as Mundus lunged forward, his massive form barreling toward them like an unstoppable force. His immense power radiated from every direction, shaking the very air around him. But Naruto was no longer the same boy who had once been overwhelmed by the darkness of his past. He had embraced his power, and now, with the strength of the Nine Tails and Purgatory at his side, he was prepared to bring an end to this nightmare. Dante's smirk never wavered as he stepped forward, his trusty sword alaster crackling with energy. He was a force of nature in his own right, his demon blood coursing through him with the same intensity as Naruto's newfound power. Mundus roared, his form shifting and cracking, shedding pieces of his divine facade until he was a twisted monstrosity of sinew and fury. "You dare challenge me again? You are nothing but insects beneath my feet," he bellowed. "Yeah, we've heard that one already," Dante retorted, spinning alaster in a flourish. "Let's see if your new look makes any difference." Naruto's expression hardened as he drew Purgatory, the blade glowing with a fiery aura. His mind was sharp, his chakra and Kyuubi power flowing into the sword. He wasn't just a boy with a dream anymore, he was a force of destruction, a god in his own right. His eyes narrowed as he assessed the looming threat before them. "Get ready, Dante," Naruto said with determination. "This time, we're finishing it." Before Dante could respond, Naruto sprinted forward, closing the distance between himself and Mundus in a flash. His footfalls were like thunder as he launched himself into the air, slashing downward with Purgatory. The blade crackled with energy, creating a powerful gust that tore through the air as it clashed with Mundus' defenses. Mundus staggered but quickly retaliated with a series of green beams shooting from his monstrous form. They sliced through the air with blistering speed, but Naruto was faster. His body moved fluidly, honed by both his shinobi instincts and the raw power of the Nine Tails. With a swift motion, he deflected the beams, sending them crashing into the walls of the chamber. Meanwhile, Dante was not far behind. He summoned his sword, Rebellion, and charged in, meeting Mundus head-on with a flurry of strikes. Each swing of his sword cracked the air, a testament to his overwhelming strength. But Mundus was relentless, swinging his massive, clawed fists to ward off Dante's attacks. The two combatants were like whirlwinds of destruction, clashing in a battle that shook the very foundation of the world around him. Mundus roared in fury as he swung his fists, the earth beneath him trembling with each strike. But Naruto and Dante weren't backing down. "You're nothing compared to the real power we've got, Mundus," Naruto shouted as he leapt into the air again, purgatory crackling with energy. "This ends now." In a burst of speed, Naruto propelled himself toward Mundus, his blade raised high. The nine tails chakras surged within him, amplifying his strength and agility as he launched a devastating strike toward the Demon King. Purgatory collided with Mundus' flesh, and the force of the blow sent shockwaves through the room, shattering the floor beneath them. Mundus staggered, his form faltering for the first time in their battle. He gritted his teeth and snarled in defiance. "You think you can defeat me so easily? I am beyond your comprehension." He raised his hand, summoning a wave of dark energy that crashed toward the two warriors. But Naruto and Dante were ready. With synchronized precision, they leapt out of the way, avoiding the blast. Dante lashed out with rebellion, striking Mundus' exposed side, while Naruto spun in the air, bringing Purgatory down in a diagonal arc. The two blades connected with Mundus' body in a blaze of light and destruction. "Enough games, Mundus," Dante said, his grin widening. "Let's finish this." Naruto nodded. "Yeah. Let's wrap this up." Together, they rushed at Mundus, their swords raised in unison. The Demon King, weakened and enraged, attempted to retaliate, but it was too late. Dante's rebellion pierced through Mundus' side, and Naruto's Purgatory cleaved through his chest, the combined power of their strikes overwhelming the Demon King. With one final, deafening roar, Mundus collapsed, his form disintegrating into nothingness as his body shattered into 1,000 pieces. The world around them trembled, but it was over. Naruto stood over the remnants of Mundus, breathing heavily. The exhaustion from the battle and the toll it had taken on his chakra reserves were becoming apparent. His vision blurred for a moment, but he steadied himself. "Is it done?" he asked, his voice a mix of exhaustion and relief. Dante gave him a weary smile. "Yeah. It's done." The two of them stood in the wreckage, their bodies bruised and battered but victorious. The underworld trembled, its foundation crumbling without the dark force of Mundus to hold it together. But Naruto and Dante had emerged triumphant. "Thanks for the help, Dante," Naruto said, turning to his new ally. "I couldn't have done it without you." Dante chuckled, sheathing his sword. "Yeah, I could tell. You've got some serious power now, kid. Just make sure you don't get too cocky." Naruto gave a small grin. "I'll try, but no promises." The two stood in the silence of the aftermath, the world around them falling apart. But there was a sense of peace in their victory. Naruto had found his strength, not just in his powers but in his resolve. And as he looked at Dante, the two of them shared a moment of understanding. "Guess it's time to get out of here," Naruto said. "Yeah, let's go," Dante replied. As they made their way toward the exit, the crumbling underworld behind them, Naruto couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of something far greater. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew he was ready. With the power of the Nine Tails, Purgatory, and his own indomitable will, Naruto had forged a path that no one could stand in the way of. And perhaps, just maybe, the world wasn't as dark as it had once seemed. Over time, Naruto's life in the human world began to settle into a rhythm. The excitement of defeating Mundus and narrowly escaping the destruction of the island faded into a more peaceful routine. He, Dante, and Trish became an inseparable trio, their bonds growing stronger as they faced new challenges and took on various missions together. While the city had its dark corners and dangers, Naruto had come to appreciate the calm moments as much as the battles. He still couldn't forget about the otherworldly powers he had obtained. The immense strength that lay dormant within him at times like a dark storm brewing just beneath the surface. Despite the relief of daily life, he knew the danger wasn't truly gone. The underworld had been dealt a heavy blow, but the remnants of its evil lingered like a shadow. The peace they had fought for would always be fragile. But that didn't stop Naruto from trying to enjoy the quiet moments. The camaraderie he shared with Dante and Trish was something he'd never imagined when he first arrived in this world. They had all been through so much together, and it made them closer than any family. He never spoke about his past, his origins, his past world, or the loneliness that once consumed him, but he didn't need to. Dante and Trish knew him in a way no one else ever had. One evening, after a particularly harrowing mission where they had barely managed to escape a demon-infested warehouse, they found themselves sitting at their usual cafe. The sky above was painted with the colors of dusk as the city began to light up below them. Trish leaned back in her chair, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "You know, I never thought I'd be sitting here like this. Not in a million years." Her eyes sparkled with a mix of relief and disbelief. Naruto chuckled, taking a sip of his drink. "Well, you've earned it. You were the one who pulled us out of that mess." He looked at Dante. "And you, old man, you've still got it?" Dante grinned, his usual cocky demeanor still intact despite the fact that they had both been covered in grime just an hour ago. "Hey, someone's gotta keep you guys in check." He winked, clearly proud of the role he played. "Thanks for everything," Trish continued, turning to face Naruto. "I don't know what I would have done without you two." Her voice softened, the playful tone replaced with something genuine. Naruto shrugged, his smile more subdued than usual. "It's nothing. We look out for each other." There was a comfortable silence between them for a moment. The city around them was alive with its usual buzz, but in that little corner, it felt like time had slowed down just for them. Despite the battles they'd fought and the enemies they'd conquered, they had found something that none of them had ever truly expected, a place to belong. Then, out of nowhere, Naruto's mind flashed with memories of his past world, of his struggles, his loneliness, and the dark power that had once coursed through him. It was a fleeting thought, but it made him uneasy. He had been given a second chance, a new life, and yet there was always a part of him that wondered if he truly deserved it. Dante, noticing the shift in Naruto's mood, raised an eyebrow. "Hey, kid. You okay?" Naruto quickly snapped out of it, forcing a grin. "Yeah, just lost in thought." He avoided Dante's gaze, not wanting to share the lingering doubts he had. But Dante, ever perceptive, seemed to understand. "Don't worry about it, all right," Dante said, his tone softer than usual. "You've got your own demons to deal with, sure. But you're not alone anymore." Trish nodded in agreement. "Exactly. Whatever comes next, we face it together." She raised her glass, a playful sparkle in her eye. "To us." "To us," Naruto echoed, clinking his glass with theirs. They spent the rest of the evening chatting and laughing, with Naruto finding solace in their companionship. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure, he had found something worth fighting for. And that was enough for him. Naruto stepped out of the tunnel, the faint glimmer of moonlight reflecting off his cloak as he emerged into the dark streets of the city. He adjusted his stance, feeling the weight of purgatory still on his back, the demon sword's presence a constant reminder of his true nature. As his footsteps echoed in the empty street, the only sign of life was the occasional flicker of light from behind closed windows. The city was peaceful now, unaware of the chaos that had unfolded beneath its feet. His mind, however, was anything but peaceful. He had become numb to the recognition and fear he garnered as the son of Dante. The title wasn't one he had sought, but it clung to him like a second skin, always a reminder of his place in the world of demons. It frustrated him. He was more than just Dante's legacy. He had his own goals, his own path to forge, and yet every demon he met only saw the bloodline he had been born into, not the man he was becoming. Naruto shook his head, pushing the thoughts aside. This wasn't the time to get lost in self-pity. The demons would never stop coming. If he let his guard down for even a second, they would swarm him, just as they had done earlier. As he walked through the city, his footsteps taking him toward an area he had been eyeing for a while now, a crumbling estate on the edge of town. This estate had once belonged to a powerful demon lord who had vanished years ago, leaving behind nothing but whispers and rumors. But Naruto had been drawn to it, sensing a power far greater than anything he had encountered before. It was there, in the heart of that desolate mansion, that he might find the answers he was looking for. His journey was far from over. He had only scratched the surface of his true potential. The power of Wiwak, the essence of destruction and rebirth, had taken root inside him, but there was more to unlock. He needed to understand the full extent of this force, and that meant seeking out those who could teach him, those who had mastered it before him. The mansion loomed ahead, its silhouette stark against the night sky. The once grand structure now stood as a hollow shell, its walls cracked and overgrown with ivy. Yet, despite its dilapidated appearance, there was something unnerving about it. An aura of malevolence hung in the air, thick and suffocating, like the building itself was alive. Naruto approached cautiously, his senses on high alert. There was no telling what kind of traps or demons might be waiting for him inside. With a swift motion, he unsheathed Purgatory, the blade gleaming with a deadly hunger. He knew that whatever awaited him in this forsaken place, he would be ready. He pushed open the creaking gates, stepping onto the overgrown grounds. The air grew heavier as he advanced, the presence of dark energy growing stronger with each step. It felt as if the estate itself was breathing, pulsing with the power of something ancient. Naruto's hand tightened around the hilt of his sword as he reached the mansion's front door. He hesitated for only a moment before pushing it open, the sound of the door scraping against the floor echoing through the empty halls. Inside, the mansion was even more unsettling. The once grand foyer was now a shadow of its former self, with tattered curtains hanging from broken windows and furniture covered in layers of dust. Yet there was an undeniable sense of presence here, a feeling that something was watching him, waiting. He walked deeper into the mansion, every footstep resounding through the silence. The further he went, the stronger the sense of power became. He could feel it tugging at the very fabric of his being, beckoning him to uncover its source. At the end of a long corridor, he found a staircase leading down into the dark depths of the mansion. The air grew colder the further he descended, and the shadows seemed to grow longer, as if alive and watching. Naruto's senses were on high alert, but he didn't hesitate. He had come here for a reason. He had come here to uncover the truth. At the bottom of the stairs, he found a large chamber, its walls covered in strange, runic symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. In the center of the room, a stone altar stood, cracked and worn with age. Above it hung a dark, swirling vortex, its surface shifting and distorting like a mirror of shadows. Naruto's heart beat faster as he approached the altar. He could feel the power emanating from it, calling to him, promising answers. But just as he reached out to touch the altar, a voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant. You seek power, but power comes at a cost. Naruto froze, his fingers inches from the altar's surface. The voice was unlike anything he had heard before, low, ancient, and full of authority. It resonated in the very marrow of his bones, sending a chill down his spine. A figure materialized from the shadows, a tall, regal being cloaked in darkness. Its face was obscured by a hood, but Naruto could feel its eyes on him, piercing through the veil of the unknown. You are not ready, the figure continued, its voice reverberating in the room. The path you walk is one of destruction, and the price you will pay for this power will be more than you can imagine. Naruto narrowed his eyes, his grip tightening on Purgatory. Who are you? The figure did not respond immediately. Instead, it stepped closer, its presence suffocating the air around him. I am the keeper of this place, it said at last. I guard the knowledge you seek, but I will not give it freely. Naruto's heart raced, but he stood his ground. Then what do I have to do to earn it? The figure tilted its head slightly, as if contemplating the question. You must prove yourself worthy. You must face the trials of the past and the darkness within yourself. Only then will you be ready to wield the power you crave. Naruto took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. He had already walked through darkness. He had already faced trials. And he would face more if it meant gaining the strength he needed to carve his own path. I'm ready, he said, his voice steady. The figure nodded, a strange smile tugging at its hidden lips. Very well. The trials begin now. With a wave of its hand, the shadows in the room seemed to come alive, swirling and converging into dark shapes that began to take form. The figure's voice echoed once more, now a mere whisper in the air. Prove your worth, Naruto Uzumaki. Prove that you are more than just the son of Dante. And with that, the trial began. As soon as Naruto accepted the offer, Elena's face lit up with a mixture of relief and excitement. She had been feeling the weight of the nightmare they had been living for weeks, and having someone like Naruto in the house, someone who could, at least in some way, take control of the situation, was a small comfort. The others, however, exchanged wary glances, still unsure of whether they should trust this stranger. But the man had saved them, killed a demon, and, from what they could tell, did not appear to be someone easily fooled or intimidated. Great. Elena's voice wavered slightly as she quickly moved to the kitchen, ready to prepare something for Naruto. Despite her nerves, she seemed to want to do something, anything, to show her appreciation for the man who had just ended their torment. Whitney, still visibly tense, leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping on the armrest. Elena, he called out softly, why don't you let me handle the rest? We don't need to push our luck here. He shot Naruto a brief look of caution. Naruto gave a small, almost amused smile. No need to worry, I'm not one for pushing things. I'll just be in the way if I stay for too long. His words were nonchalant, but they carried a depth that hinted at a more complicated life behind them. He didn't want to get too comfortable in a stranger's home, especially after what he had just done, but the offer was tempting. Rufus, who had remained silent for most of the evening, finally spoke up. Naruto, he said cautiously, you're certain that the demon is gone? This isn't just some trick. Naruto's gaze sharpened, and for the first time since arriving, the weight of his response felt like it carried a real edge. I'm certain, he said, his tone firm and unwavering. I killed it, and I traced the contracts back to the one who summoned it. That man, he motioned to the body of Damascus Vladimir still lying lifeless on the floor, was using the demon to terrorize you. He's not coming back. The words seemed to settle over the room, like the dust after a storm. There was a strange finality in Naruto's voice, as if he was not just telling them what they wanted to hear, but what they needed to hear. The fear that had lingered in their hearts seemed to dissipate a little, but it wasn't gone completely. Elena, who had been listening intently, gave Naruto a nervous smile. Well, we're grateful, really, we are. She sounded almost guilty, as though offering him shelter in their home was some sort of obligation, not just an act of kindness. Naruto nodded, acknowledging her gratitude without responding. His eyes briefly lingered on her, and he could see how shaken she still was, how the past few weeks had worn down the entire family. They were far from being out of the woods, but for the moment, at least, they were safe. As the night wore on, Naruto stayed quietly in the living room while the family tried to get back to some semblance of normalcy. Whitney and Rufus were locked in a low conversation, presumably discussing the next steps for the family now that their immediate problem had been dealt with. Elena, meanwhile, had insisted on preparing something for Naruto to eat, even if it was just a small snack. She seemed determined to make up for the situation, though Naruto didn't mind either way. The house was quiet again, with only the soft hum of the city outside and the occasional clink of kitchenware breaking the silence. Naruto looked out the window, his mind racing through thoughts of his next move. This small respite was brief, and as much as he wanted to relax, he couldn't afford to let his guard down. He had seen how the demon worked, how its contractor had used it as leverage. But something about it didn't sit right with him. Demons were cunning creatures by nature, and their contracts were never just one-sided. What had driven Vladimir to summon such a being? There were too many unanswered questions. Naruto's fingers traced the edge of the briefcase he had taken from Whitney, knowing that it wasn't just a payment. He could sense there was more to it, and he had a feeling that whatever was inside would give him a clearer picture of just what kind of mess he had just stepped into. "Thanks," Naruto said quietly to Elena when she returned with a plate of food. Her anxiousness hadn't fully disappeared, but she managed a weak smile, placing the plate in front of him. "No problem," she responded, her voice gentle. As Naruto picked up the plate and began eating, his mind still swirled with unanswered questions. What had he gotten himself into, really? He had dealt with demons, sure, but there was something darker beneath the surface of the situation, something that didn't just involve the family in front of him. Whatever it was far from over. And as the night grew deeper, he knew his work in the city had only just begun. As Naruto and Elena entered the restaurant, the familiar, comforting scent of ramen broth hit Naruto's senses. His stomach growled instinctively, reminding him that despite his usual cool demeanor, he was still very much human when it came to food. The shop was bustling with energy, with laughter and casual chatter filling the air. It was a sharp contrast to the tension that had gripped both their lives over the past few days. Elena pulled him towards a small corner booth near the window. Naruto could see her move with a strange sort of reluctance, as if she didn't fully belong in the space, yet she was trying to appear as if she did. It wasn't a look he'd seen from her before. Typically, Elena exuded an air of quiet elegance. But now, under the weight of her fall from grace, there was a heaviness in her posture. Her hood still covered much of her face, but it didn't hide the lines of fatigue and anxiety that seemed to have settled into her features. They sat down, and an elderly woman came over to take their order. Her hands were steady as she placed menus in front of them, smiling kindly at the two. "Welcome to Ramen Paradise. What can I get for you today?" she asked in a soft, welcoming tone. Naruto glanced over at Elena, who had remained silent. He could sense that she was uncomfortable, but she didn't speak up, only offering a vague gesture towards the menu. "I'll have the regular miso ramen," he said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but there was something in the way he said it that hinted at the tension between them. Elena still didn't say a word. She just sat there, lost in her thoughts, the hood of her hoodie obscuring her face even further. The woman took their orders before walking back to the kitchen, and Naruto leaned back in his seat. The peaceful ambience of the restaurant was strangely disconcerting for him. Despite the noise around him, everything felt oddly hollow. His mind kept drifting back to the last few days, to the strange events that had led him here. "What's going through your mind?" Kurama's voice echoed in Naruto's mind. Naruto didn't answer immediately. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was all part of some bigger plan, or perhaps, a cruel twist of fate. He glanced at Elena, who was still staring into the table, her fingers absently tracing the rim of her cup. Kurama's chuckle rumbled low in his mind. "The woman's got some serious baggage, doesn't she?" Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Not like I can fix her problems. She's beyond saving, anyway. People like her," he trailed off, unsure of where his thoughts were leading. "I never said you had to save her, idiot," Kurama replied, his voice dripping with amusement. "But you could at least offer her a distraction. Something better than those gloomy thoughts running through your head." Naruto didn't answer. His gaze shifted once again to Elena. She was still staring blankly ahead, but there was something vulnerable about her. For a moment, it felt like he could almost understand what she was going through, like they were both standing at the edge of something dangerous and uncertain, caught between the shadows of their pasts and the potential of their futures. Just as Naruto was about to speak again, Elena finally broke her silence, though her voice was barely above a whisper. "Do you ever wish that things could be different?" Elena asked, her voice soft and fragile. She didn't look up at him. Instead, her hands clutched the table, as if trying to ground herself. Naruto thought for a moment before replying. "Sometimes," he said quietly. "But the world doesn't work like that. We don't get to turn back time, and we don't get to fix things that have already been broken. All we can do is move forward." Elena was silent for a long time, her hood still pulled low over her face. Naruto wasn't sure if she heard him or if her mind was too far gone, lost in the fog of her own despair. "I know," she murmured eventually, barely audible. "But I don't know how to move forward. Everything's changed so fast. My life, everything I knew, it's just gone." Naruto watched her, sensing her isolation. He wasn't good at comforting people. Hell, he had never been good at it for himself, but there was something in Elena's words that felt like a reflection of his own struggles. He could see the same type of pain he had felt, only hers was more recent. He couldn't make it better for her, but perhaps he could give her something he never had: someone who would listen without judging. "You're not alone, Elena," he said finally. It wasn't the most comforting thing to say, but it was the truth. "You've got people around you who care, even if it doesn't feel that way right now." Her eyes flickered up, but she said nothing in response. Instead, she looked past him, her expression unreadable. A few moments later, the elderly woman returned with their ramen, setting the steaming bowls in front of them. The savory aroma filled the air, and for a brief moment, Naruto could feel his stomach take precedence over everything else. Elena, still not speaking much, hesitantly reached for her bowl, but she didn't eat right away. Instead, she picked at the noodles, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. Naruto, not one for long silences, picked up his chopsticks and began eating. The warmth of the broth, the familiar taste of the noodles, was a welcome distraction from everything else weighing on his mind. As he ate, he glanced at Elena again. She hadn't touched her ramen yet, but she had stopped fidgeting with her bowl. Her gaze was lost somewhere in the distance, her mind far away from this small restaurant, from this fleeting moment of peace. Naruto understood. He had been there before, stuck in his own head, unable to break free from the past. But maybe, just maybe, Elena could find a way to break through it. For now, though, they sat in silence, eating their ramen in a small, bustling restaurant, as the world continued to move forward outside the window. Naruto, meanwhile, sat at the table, staring absently at the cup of tea that had been placed in front of him. His mind was far from the warmth of the beverage, instead racing through the last few days. His experience with the demon, the power he had harnessed from the spider creature, and the newfound connection with Elena were all a tangled web in his thoughts. He glanced at her now, her head slightly tilted down, the hood still casting a shadow over her face as she fiddled with the ends of her sleeves. The atmosphere in the restaurant remained tense, though the strange customers' attention was slowly shifting back to their own meals. Elena's hoodie had drawn a few curious stares, but for the most part, the focus was back on the food, and Linming had disappeared into the back to deliver the orders. As the silence stretched, Naruto leaned back in his chair, a frown tugging at his lips. "You're awfully quiet today," he said, breaking the stillness. "What's on your mind?" Elena stiffened slightly, surprised by his directness, but she didn't look up. "I'm fine," she replied quietly, her voice flat. The response was so quick, it sounded almost rehearsed, but Naruto knew enough not to press her further. He wasn't here to force her into conversation. He understood the weight of solitude all too well. The doorbell jingled again as another customer entered, but Naruto's attention remained fixed on the figure across from him. He could sense the weight of the past on her shoulders. The same way he had once been, Elena had been thrust into a situation far beyond her control, and her isolation, however masked by the facade of her hoodie and indifference, was palpable. Kurama, however, broke the silence in Naruto's mind with a taunting chuckle. "Aren't you going to ask her about that mysterious demon incident? Surely even you are curious, brat." Naruto exhaled through his nose. "Yeah, I'm curious. But she's not ready to talk about it? People like her, like I used to be, don't just open up to anyone." "Oh, please. You're practically a walking disaster in a hoodie. Let's face it, you're the last person who should talk about opening up," Kurama teased. Naruto smirked to himself, deciding to drop the conversation with his inner demon for now. Their quiet moment was interrupted when Linming reappeared, 2 steaming bowls of ramen in hand. The fragrant steam rose from the bowls, filling the small restaurant with the tantalizing smell of spices and broth. She placed the bowls on the table with a small smile. "Here you go. Miso ramen for you," she said, placing Naruto's dish in front of him, before shifting Elena's bowl in front of her. Naruto's eyes lit up as he picked up his chopsticks, the familiar scent instantly evoking memories of his childhood, a time before all the chaos, before he had been thrown into the world of demons and dark power. It was a fleeting moment of peace, and he savored it. Elena, on the other hand, remained quiet, her gaze fixed on her bowl, the noodles untouched. The silence between them hung thick once again, but Naruto felt no need to break it. For once, it was just calm. But then, as if the universe decided it had enough of peace, the quiet was shattered. A loud crash sounded from the street outside the restaurant, followed by shouting. The bell above the door clanged as a group of men burst inside, their expressions wild, their movements quick and erratic. Elena's head snapped up in response, her body tense as the intruders scanned the room. Naruto's hand instinctively moved toward his waist, where his kunai pouch normally sat, only to find it absent. Old habits died hard, and the lack of his familiar tools made him feel exposed. The men, 3 in total, stormed up to the register. Mr. Ming, seeing the situation unfolding, immediately began to step back, trying to put distance between himself and the potential threat. But his attempts were futile. One of the men, a broad-shouldered thug with a scar over his left eyebrow, pointed at the cash register. "Empty the register," he snarled at Mr. Ming, his voice gruff and unyielding. The other 2 men, smaller but equally fierce in demeanor, stood by the door, making sure no one tried to escape. Naruto's eyes narrowed. The atmosphere in the restaurant shifted from tense to suffocating. Elena visibly stiffened, her hands gripping the edge of the table. She was shaking not from fear, but something else, something far darker. Naruto, sensing the shift in her, glanced at her, only to find her eyes now burning with a strange intensity. His brow furrowed. It was like her entire demeanor had shifted, no longer the quiet, shy girl who had hidden behind a hoodie, but something else. Someone else. The leader of the group, the one with the scar, turned to face the room. His eyes scanned the crowd, finally landing on Naruto. "You think you're safe here, huh? You think this place is some peaceful little hideaway?" He chuckled darkly, approaching Naruto's table with a slow, deliberate pace. "I've seen your type before, just another weakling trying to hide behind a mask." Naruto didn't move. His eyes locked onto the thug, a silent understanding passing between them. This wasn't just a robbery. These men weren't after money. As the thug continued to speak, Naruto's attention flickered back to Elena. The intensity in her gaze had only increased. And then, without a word, she stood up. The room fell into a heavy silence as everyone, including Naruto, watched her. Before anyone could react, Elena's hands shot out in a blur of movement. She grabbed one of the thug's arms and twisted it with a speed that seemed impossible. A loud crack echoed through the room. The thug howled in pain, but Elena wasn't done. She kicked him in the chest, sending him crashing into one of the tables. Naruto blinked in disbelief. "Elena," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. Her face remained impassive, her eyes cold as she turned her gaze back to the remaining two thugs. The room was eerily quiet, save for the sounds of the thug groaning in pain as he struggled to stand. Then Elena spoke, her voice calm and clear, though it held a dangerous edge. "I think you've made a mistake coming here," she said, her words calculated and deliberate. The remaining two thugs, now visibly shaken, raised their weapons, preparing to strike back. But Naruto had seen enough. In an instant, he stood, his presence erupting like a storm. The sudden pressure of his chakra flooded the room, choking the air with its intensity. The remaining thugs froze, their weapons shaking in their hands. Without a word, Naruto snapped his fingers. The air crackled. A devastating shockwave burst from his body, sending the two thugs flying across the room and into the walls with a sickening thud. The restaurant fell silent. Naruto stood, his gaze shifting to Elena, who was now watching him with a mixture of awe and something else. Something he couldn't quite place. He wondered if she had recognized the power in him. The darkness that had begun to rise. But then she lowered her gaze, returning to her seat, as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just demonstrated a power capable of destroying the entire restaurant. Naruto sat back down slowly, letting out a long breath. The storm within him was only just beginning to form. And he could already feel the coming danger.